February 10th, 2025. And with that, would you please stand for the invocation by Pastor Moon, River of Life Church, and stay standing for the pledge.
So, Father, we just take this moment tonight to just be still and know that you're God. As your word tells us that you keep at perfect peace those who keep their minds on you and trust in you. And so, Father, we take this very special moment right now to just simply do that, to know that you're God, to place our minds on you and to receive that peace. And so, Father, I ask for your peace tonight in this very room, your peace in our souls, and your peace in this city. God, may it reside consistently in Alachua. God, we thank you for the lives here tonight, for the students here tonight, God, that have such wonderful skills and gifts. Father, I ask that you continue to cultivate those things in their lives or skills as they continue to grow and to become the men and women that they will be. Father, we take this moment to just simply thank you for our city, to thank you to be able to have the opportunity to continue to serve this city. God, I ask for your grace, your favor, and your mercy upon our city's leaders tonight as they continue to lead this city so well. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to go ahead and get approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, if I could briefly interrupt. Been made aware that items B, C, and D under public hearings and ordinance are being deferred to a date certain of February 24th, 2025, pending required documentation. It's the second meeting in February.
The
Mr.
next
Mayor,
meeting.
yeah, the next meeting. Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the agenda with the, as amended.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Will anyone from the audience like to comment on the motion on the floor?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commission staff. My name is Tamara Robbins. Could you please repeat the motion in
Would
full?
you state your name for the record, please?
I did. You need it again?
Yes,
Tamara Robbins.
thank you.
So if you could state the motion again, please, in full? I didn't catch it. Could you repeat it, please?
I move to approve the agenda as amended,
And what was the amendment?
that items B, C, and D are postponed to date certain, February 24th, 25th commission meeting, due to pending required documentation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'd like to speak to the agenda, which you still do have a public hearing on there for the Schmidt Farms public hearing, item A. And what I have noticed is that during public hearings, the public is left out of the process. And why I'm saying that is that that overhead up there is a great tool. And the public owns the tool, we own the building, we own all the facilities, right? But the public is not allowed to present information to you in a visual form by using that. So it's unfair that the public cannot put visuals on an overhead, even presented to you in a disc or in a zip drive or anything. You don't allow it.
Thank you.
And so my 3 minutes are up. So I think you should. I'd like to know why you don't, why you marginalize out the public and don't give us the fair opportunity to have a fair public hearing, like you allow the applicant to present visuals and maps and all this stuff. And you don't allow the public, of which those hearings are legally required, to present to you visual information using the very tools that we own. If you could explain that to me, thank you.
Anyone else? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approve reading of proposed ordinance and resolutions by title only.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Special presentations, the Matthew Louis proclamation.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, City Attorney. Matthew Louis was a former resident of Alachua, Noonan'sville. He served as a mayor, editor, postmaster, justice of the peace, and state legislature. The Alachua Noonan'sville Subcommittee of the Alachua County Community Remembrance Project is here to honor the memory of this remarkable civil rights leader. The committee would also like to inform the City Commission of the Matthew Louis Intergenerational Celebration scheduled for February 23rd, 2025 at 3 p.m. at the Thomas Center. The recommended action is to receive the presentation.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you all so very much for 2 years, consecutive years of recognizing Mr.
Could you state your name
Louis.
for the record, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Nkwanda Ja. I'm a resident of Gainesville, but a great admirer of Alachua City for having Mr. Louis as a part of your community. Did I miss the reading of the proclamation?
No, I haven't read it yet.
Okay. Do you want to do that before?
Yes, ma'am. if that's
Okay, all
Thank-
right.
Thank you very much.
New territory here, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Whereas Matthew Louis' life spanned from December 18th, 1884 to August 12th, 1935. And whereas Matthew Louis enlisted in the Union Army in 1863 during the Civil War in the 55th Infantry Regiment and was promoted to the rank of non-commissioned officer. And whereas on November 30th, 1864, he was shot in the battlefield, severely wounded at Honey Hill, South Carolina, and was thought to be dead. And whereas Matthew Louis moved to Noonanville in 1876, and whereas Matthew Louis entered into wedlock in 1883 to Bessie Chestnut, and whereas Matthew Louis served as Florida judge also as Justice of the Peace, and whereas Matthew Louis served as postmaster and mayor of Noonanville, also known as Alachua, from 1875, 1877, and whereas Matthew Louis served in the Florida House of Representatives in 1882, and whereas Matthew Louis was the first African-American Florida newspaper editor and began the Gainesville Sentinel, 1887. And whereas in 1884, Matthew Louis and other black political leaders created the Independent Party of Florida, the first explicitly biracial political party in Florida history. And whereas he helped launch the Pensacola streetcar boycott against segregation in 1905, and this was there before the civil rights movement of Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. And whereas Matthew Louis was named president of the National Negro Press Association, and whereas Matthew Louis' final resting place is in Mount Pleasant Cemetery in Gainesville, Florida. Now I therefore give Cooper, Mayor of the City of Alachua, representing the city and the City Commission, do hereby proclaim February 23rd, 2025 as Matthew Louis Day. Yes, ma'am.
And again, thank you all so very much for again recognizing Mr. Matthew Louis' work. He, as you heard from the proclamation, he did in one lifetime what it would take 6 to 8 of us to do. He did it, and he did it from this community, so you should be so proud of him. We are, as Matthew Louis Organizing Committee, Ms. Deborah Sermon, Miss, well, need no introduction, but Miss Carol Richardson and Mr. Kaufman, as well as your city commissioner, Ms. Brown. We've been doing some more research on him, and we found some other things out that we hope to share with you at a later time. We are going to have an intergenerational celebration. That means that we're bringing together our young people and our older people to learn this history. We hope that other communities such as yours will have programs that not only teach people around you, because you've probably been just like a lot of other people, like, wow, really? Why didn't I know about that? So we want to educate our communities around Alachua County. We should be proud of him all around Alachua County. And I know that Commissioner Chestnut, we're still trying to get that research done that proves that he's a part of the Matthew Louis family, but we don't want to jump out there. We want to have all of our facts together. So again, thank you so very much for the proclamation.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for being here. We thank you for your leadership, your dedication. And with that, Mr. Mayor, may we get a picture? Commissioners?
No.
You guys probably go this direction, so that way I can have a better view. Okay. So, yep. Okay.
Be in the picture. Take the picture. Oh, you want me to be in it? What?
I'll take it for you.
I
Yeah, yeah.
appreciate it.
Take a picture if you want me to.
All right, we'll look up here. All right, then. Got it? Yeah, perfect. Great, thank you.
A.M. O'Bain, Middle School Student Performing Arts.
Good evening, Deus. Leanne Williams, Deputy City Clerk. The performing arts offer a human connection like no other. They are a way of expressing thoughts and emotions through various mediums. Tonight, the A.L. M'Bain Middle School Band will perform The Plaza de Toros and Sail Away. After the Commission receives the performance, Mayor Kerper and Ms. Jacqueline Holbrook will hand the certificates out to the musicians. The recommended action is to receive the presentation and have Mayor Kerper present the certificates.
make sure we line up across this wooden area right here once we get our certificate, okay? Because we're going to get a picture. Microphone ready. Does it need to be here? Hadley Romp, come on up. Be careful of your stance, guys. It's going to be a bit of a maneuver. Valeria Santa Maria. Lucille Smiley. Race Walsh. Dominique Jackson. Robert Johnson. Yeah, careful of the tuba. Lawson Moore. Go around. Miss Rainey Parker. Charles Petty. I have no clue. I've never figured it out. Sophia Pilgrim. Grace Beatty. James Boston. Wait. I forgot. He came late. Ben Black. Riley Capistrano. Cassidy Casper. Tyler Chamberlain. Kenneth Day. Kate Esprit. Annabelle Forbes. Cale Hudkins. There he goes. Miss Daranique Jackson. Sean Abad. Caitlin Alessi. Phoebe Bailey. Sophia Batista. Aubrey Beatty. Elizabeth Beatty. And Talia, welcome. Yes.
Two steps forward.
Pictures.
Okay, we'll stand in the back.
All right, now everybody who didn't take 2 steps forward, go ahead and move this way. You guys are all gonna have to come this way. Basically, we're gonna have 2 rows, and the ones who are taller are gonna be in the back. And if you can't see me, then I definitely can't see you. And I'm also short too, so that doesn't help.
We're trying to make
And you go ahead and scoot in, scoot in, scoot in, scoot in. Alright. We'll have you 3 on the very end. Keep scooting, keep scooting, keep scooting. Scoot. Have you go actually in between these 2, so I don't have you go right. Yeah, that's fine. And then just go right to the back. Right. And I'll have you. Perfect. Miss Shirley. Perfect. Alright. Can everybody see us? Because if I can't see you, or if you can't see me, I can't see you. Alright, look at me. Now don't move.
Yes, great job, my Maine Mustangs.
Oh, my goodness.
They didn't come. I don't know. Well,
Just want to tell the parents they can stay the rest of the meeting if you want to. All right. One time. Would like to go on to first round of comments from citizens on subject of choice not on the agenda. Please limit 3 minutes. State your name for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Tamara Robbins. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, and staff. Thank you, Ms. Rush. So I'm here to just address a couple of items that are in your code, the City of Alachua's code. And whenever you have a quasi-judicial hearing, in the past, my experience is that you limit public comment to 3 minutes. And First of all, I'm going to read, because it's out of section 2.3.1, the burden of proof. The burden of demonstrating that an application complies with applicable review and approval standards of these LDRs is on the applicant, which shall be demonstrated by competent substantial evidence. The burden is not on the city or other parties to show that the standards have not been met by the applicant. And it seems like that's kind of what ends up happening, is that people try to, we do, because we don't believe that the applicant, in many incidences, meet the burden of proof, right? That they're not giving complete information, and we have other information to present. But of course, as I noted earlier, we're not allowed to have, it's not a level playing field here. Like, the applicant can put stuff on the overhead, and we can't. It's actually discriminatory. Like, we're being discriminated against by not being able to put stuff and use the same tools that everybody else can use. Why can we not use the tools that we own? I really would like an answer to that. Okay, it's just unfair and it's discriminatory. So the other part of section 2.3.1 is the public comment. It's J, subparagraph J. Any person who is not an affected party may be permitted to speak for up to 5 minutes in support or in opposition to the application. That's 5 minutes, not 3. It's 5. So I'm here to remind you that you can play the game of up to 5 minutes. It says 5 minutes in your code. We are allowed to speak up to 5 minutes. And then it says, at the discretion of the chair or of the review decision-making body, a member of the public may be granted additional time to speak when it is justified. Okay, I get that. That's up to your discretion. So we are allowed to have up to 5 minutes, and the public needs to be granted what your codes say that we are allowed to legally have. You're already cutting us off to a great tool that should be at our resource to present the information that we, the public, would like you to take under consideration, because it is relevant whether you think we're an affected party or not. Thank you.
Anyone else? Please state your name for the record.
My name is Karen Arrington.
Can you repeat that again?
Karen Arrington. Peut-être en français?
Your name?
I just said my name.
Okay.
So, Tamara Robbins just asked you why you're not making it available for the public to put things on the overhead. When you go to the county, you can do that. And I believe you can do it in Newberry and other cities too. She said this twice tonight and you haven't answered her. I would respectfully ask you guys to please tell everybody in this room why we can't have things on the overhead. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Brian Bisher. Good evening, commissioners, staff. I'm here today to talk a little bit about planning policies and going forward with planning in the city of Alachua. Perhaps instead of the Good Life community, we can begin to start calling it the Commuter Life community. Because we're really looking at developing a lot of houses. I believe you guys have 4,500 units on the books. You have 9 miles of 441 that it looks like you're trying to have housing developments along each side of it for the full 9 miles, or commercial if that doesn't fit. With that in mind, 4,500 units represents about 45,000 car trips a day. 45,000 car trips a day triples your traffic on 441, which is already, according to your future land use map, an F. So where does it end? Where do you guys draw the line? I think part of the problem is the piecemealing projects together. And I brought this to your attention before, that when you just look at projects as like a small piece and say, yeah, there's no real impact of this. Yeah, but this is only 200 units of this 1,000 unit development. And things need to be looked at in total because they do have a dramatic impact. If you kick the can down the road and say, well, we're going to put that on the last little bit of development for that particular project as a requirement, it's not sufficient. You're behind the curve, and you're just going to get steamrolled over. Or at least we are trying to drive on the roads in the commuter life community. I had an opportunity this last weekend to meet with the former Secretary of the Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT. And I posed the question to him. I said, here's what we're facing, right? We've got these elements where we're piecemealing projects together and we're kicking the can down the road to make these decisions. Where do I go to FDOT in order to address this issue? And his response to me was, this is not an FDOT issue. This is a local planning issue. So it falls back to your plate. And so I think it's really important that you're able to direct your planning and zoning board to that effect. In my presentations to the planning and zoning board, I've been told that their job is basically to change colors on a map. That's insufficient. Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Robert Harrison. I'm here, we kind of represent the Staghorn community. I know it's not on the agenda and this is the time we're supposed to speak about it. Got a couple quick things on the process that we've been going through trying to get the Rizzo project in motion. I don't think it's come before you guys yet, but it's coming out of P&Z probably tomorrow night. The first thing I'd like to ask you about is the process. Now, we've been complaining about the process of notification since we first got involved in the issue. The mail out in the newspaper, how many people today get newspaper, and how many are getting the mail outs that are supposedly being sent out? My question to you is, can you as a commission or you as a group, can you get on social media? Because I think that's where most people are getting 90% of their information today. Maybe on the Alachua Watch or Alachua News or something, so we can get better communications about projects that's coming up and things that's happening in our communities. Because a lot of times in this process, we don't get the notifications we need to address some of the issues that we got. Now, NV5 was very gracious. They held a meeting with us. It went well. We think they're trying to do the things that's necessary to get everything approved and everything done. But it seems like that we were working from behind the 8 ball the whole time. Now, I called Mayor Gibb yesterday or the day before, and there is one other hanging issue out there that we really need to try to get resolved if we can, and that's the safety issue for a turn lane at the Rizzo project. The mayor told me at that point that he would try to send a letter to FDOT, and he would also communicate that with the county commissioners to get a turn lane put in there. That is going to be a real safety problem if we don't get something done with a turn lane going into the Rizzo project. And that's a couple of things that we have not got clarification on, where they can or where they can't. We have gotten a hold of FDOT, and they said they didn't want to cut any more curbs in, but I think cutting those curbs and getting things right to start with may save somebody's life one day. And those are the things that we're concerned about at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So good evening, Claudia Rasnick. I want to put in a public records request for your capital improvement plan. I assume that you have one for about the next 5 or 10 years. I'm concerned about the infrastructure that's being put in place The previous gentleman mentioned 441 and all of the developments in the city of Alachua. Well, eventually you're going to have to maintain that infrastructure. And I'm curious to see if that's already built into your plans, which will be into your future tax rates. So if it's on the website, you can point me that way, or if not, I can shoot you my email address so you can send it directly to me there. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, any public records requests can be made through our Deputy City Clerk's office, and or you can do it online as well. You can ask for it there too.
I believe I just made a verbal request. I'll provide my email address to the deputy clerk, but I technically only have to give you a verbal request.
Okay.
Anyone else? We'd like to go on to item A, appointment to Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Good evening, Deus. I am Leanne Williams, Deputy City Clerk. The Parks and Recreation Advisory Board has 2 vacant seats. Your packet includes the details of the appointment. The city received 3 applications. The names of the applicants are in alphabetical order: Asia Eichmann, Carol Richardson, and Travis White. As provided by the Florida statutes 943.04351, the city searched each applicant's name against the registry information regarding sexual predators and sexual offenders maintained by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. None of the applicants were found in the registry. The applicants have been contacted about their potential appointment and informed of their right to be present should they wish to speak. Would you like for me to call them forward, Mr. Mayor? Would you like for me to call them forward?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Asia Eichmann. Okay. Carol Richardson.
Good evening, Carol Richardson, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, City Manager, Ms. Rush. It is my pleasure to come before you requesting appointment to the Parks and Recreation Board. I have been a member of the board and really love the city and love putting together cultural programs and supporting parks and recreation. I'm a member of the Florida Park and Recreation Association, where I look at how to merge the arts with sports and recreation, and particularly trails and passive entertainment. Anything I could do to serve and be a help, I enjoy doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Travis White.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. City Manager. My name is Travis White. When I came here 3 years ago, I was seeking my first ever advisory board appointment, and it was to the Park and Recreation Advisory Board. And I would just like to say how much I've learned from that, and it sparked me to then apply for the Educational Task Force for the city, where I serve as vice chair currently. I come with a bachelor's degree in sport management from University of Florida. I am a 7-year physical education teacher in the county, as well as having a serving heart. I have volunteered for Santa Fe High School as one of their announcers for 17 years at this point. I would just like to say how much I've learned from listening to our citizens, and I would hope that the discussions I've been a part of has helped further our programs here, working with our wonderful director, Mr. Messina, and I would just respectfully ask to be considered to be reappointed to the Advisory Board for Park and Rec. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now conduct the ballot process. This ballot is a vote for a maximum of 2. Ms. Asia Eichmann has 0 of 5 votes. Carol Richardson has 5 of 5 votes. Travis White has 5 of 5 votes. The recommended action is to appoint 2 applicants to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for a 3-year term expiring on February 21, 2028.
Need a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we, reappoint Travis White and Carol Richardson to their spots on the Parks and Rec Board with terms ending 2/21 of 28.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Would anyone from the audience like to comment on the motion on the floor?
Good evening, Rudy Rothside here. I just want to send my support towards Miss Carol. She's been a wonderful person in our city. She does a lot of activities. She's involved in all sorts of different arenas, and I've really come to know and enjoy what she does for our community, and hope to keep her involved as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Go ahead.
Mr. White, thank you for your service and your willingness to serve again. Mrs. Richardson, of course, my sincere thanks to you. I've known you for a long, long time, and you don't stop, and that's a great thing. So thank you for your willingness to serve again, and thank you for representing the city.
With that, we'd like to go to public hearings and ordinances, and this is preliminary plat, Schmidt Farms. This is a quasi judicial hearing. If you plan on speaking on this, please stand up and be sworn in.
Please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, since this is quasi-judicial, I'm also going to voir the people who are here on the dais and ask if any of you have been contacted verbally, in writing, and received any other information other than that which has been provided to you by the city. And so I'm going to start with Commissioner Ringerson.
No.
Commissioner Brown.
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes, I've received emails.
And can you make your decision based solely on what you are being provided and hearing right here in this room, so that you are making a quasi-judicial hearing based on the competent substantial evidence being presented?
Yes, I can.
And Mr. Potts?
Yes, emails and written correspondence.
Okay, do you have, is that written correspondence other than that which is in the backup for this?
No, just that.
Okay, so that is information that has been provided to you by the city, and that is part of this presentation. Okay, now again, can you make your decision based solely upon the information that you are receiving in this quasi-judicial hearing?
Yes, I can make my decision based on the information tonight.
And Mr. Kerper, Mr. Mayor Kerper?
I've been contacted by mail and email, and yes.
Okay, and again, can you make your decision solely based upon the information you've received from the city in the packet, the backup, and the information that is provided to you here, with the burden of there being competent substantial evidence for your decision?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, City Attorney. Carson J. Crockett, Planner with the City of Alachua Planning and Community Development Department. My resume is on file in the office of the Deputy City Clerk, and I've been sworn in. This item is a request by Timothy J. Boline of J. Brown Professional Group, LLC, on behalf of the property owner, DM Alachua Investments, LLC, for a preliminary plat and final PD plan for the Schmidt Farm subdivision, which proposes the subdivision of approximately 120.63 acres into a total of 188 lots, with associated common areas and rights-of-way. The preliminary plat is divided into 4 phases, with 2 proposed connections to US 441. The subject property is generally located south of US Highway 441 and northwest 43rd Street. Lots shown on the proposed subdivision range from approximately 2,613 square feet in size to as large as approximately 15,681 square feet in size, with the majority of lots being over 6,000 square feet in size. Stormwater for the proposed development will be conveyed to and treated within 4 on-site stormwater management facilities. The future land use of the subject property was amended in May of 2022 from commercial and agriculture to commercial, high-density residential, moderate-density residential, and conservation. Similarly, the zoning of the subject property was also amended in May of 2022 from agricultural A and commercial intensive CI to planned development residential, PDR, and planned development commercial, PDCOM. The Planning and Zoning Board voted 4-0 at their January 14th, 2025 meeting to forward the application to the City Commission with a recommendation to approve. Here we have an overview of the subject property in the black and white hatched border around here. You can see this is kind of near our municipal boundary, which is the line in red. Running to the northeast of the property is US 441, to the eastern side, northwest 43rd Street. For reference, here we have the Brook Point subdivision on the north side. The GRU Deer Haven facility is out of frame to the north, and then the Marathon gas station there to the right. And then this is an overview of the proposed preliminary plat. Just to call out a couple of things of note, north is still the top, US 441 still running here, with northwest 43rd Street still running north-south to the east of the property. We have the 4 stormwater basins, one here, here, and here. Those are the 4 stormwater basins. And then the 2 connections to US 441 are here and here. As part of this application, there's no access proposed to 43rd Street. Also of note are the wetlands located on the site. These are not the wetland lines. These are the wetlands plus the required 50-foot buffer minimum. And then the requirement is for an average of 75 foot over the entire buffer. So some areas exceed the 50-foot, some are the 50-foot, many are over that 75-foot requirement. A neighborhood meeting was held on March 11th, 2024. Property owners within 400 feet and registered persons and organizations registered with the city received notice. Public notice was also published in a newspaper of general circulation. Materials submitted by the applicant indicate that the meeting was attended by 18 people. 2 property owners did not receive notice prior to the meeting, but the applicant attempted contact with them to meet and discuss the project and any concerns. Section 2.4.10 G2E states that a preliminary plat shall be approved upon a finding the application complies with the standards in Article 7, subdivision standards, all other relevant provisions of these LDRs, and all other relevant city ordinances and regulations. The application has been reviewed for and is found to be in compliance with the applicable standards of Article 7, subdivision standards, excuse me. The subject property is zoned planned development, residential, PDR. Section 2.4.3 E1 states that the final PD plan for a planned development shall be either a site plan or major subdivision preliminary plat, whichever is appropriate. The application has been reviewed for compliance with the standards of Section 2.4.3 E1. The preliminary plat has been reviewed for conformance with the PD master plan and the PD agreement and is found to conform to all applicable provisions of the PD master plan and PD agreement. The application's impacts to the environment features listed above has been analyzed with the results found in the staff report. The subject property does contain wetlands with which the appropriate buffers will be required in accordance with the city's LDRs. A determination of exact current location and quality of wetlands will be required at time of construction plans to ensure those buffers are met and that compliance with the city's comp plan is met. As for regulated plant, animals, and species, a migratory bird species was observed on the site, killdeer. A state-regulated plant, Florida shiny pod, Metellea floridana, was observed within the conservation land use area. As a condition of the associated plan development rezoning application, conditions have been added that would require special consideration for these species. If any other regulated plant or animal species is identified during development, the applicant must adhere to the applicable standards in the City of Alachua Comprehensive Plan and Land Development Regulations. Additionally, there are flood zones A and AE on the property, and applicable requirements of the LDRs in the Florida Building Code will be required to be complied with. The application has been reviewed to determine if the proposed development impacts to public facilities will be acceptable. An analysis of the development's impacts to transportation, potable water, sanitary sewer, solid waste, drainage facilities, recreation, and public schools has been provided in the staff report. The impacts generated by the proposed development will not degrade the level of service of any public facility and are therefore acceptable. Please note that a final PD plan is a final development order and concurrency will be reserved. The Planning and Zoning Board voted 4-0 at their January 14th, 2025 meeting to forward the application to the City Commission with a recommendation to approve, subject to the 9 conditions provided in Exhibit A and located on page 27 of the staff report. Staff recommends that the City Commission approve the preliminary plat and final PD plan of Schmidt Farm subdivision, subject to the 9 conditions provided in Exhibit A and located on page 27 of the staff report. At this time, I'm available to answer any questions, and the applicant and agent for the property owner is present. I believe they also have.
Would you state the 9 conditions?
One moment. The following 9 conditions are listed in Exhibit A on page 27 of the staff report to the Planning and Zoning Board. Condition 1, the applicant agrees that if any gopher tortoises or gopher tortoise burrows are discovered on site, it shall provide a 100% gopher tortoise survey for the subject property, which shall include a list of all local, state, and federal permits required for relocation of any gopher tortoises on site. Surveys shall be valid for a period of 3 years from original date of survey. Condition 2. The applicant agrees that if any killdeer or killdeer nests are discovered on site, it shall provide a 100% killdeer survey for the subject property. Surveys shall be valid for a period of 3 years from original date of survey. Condition 3. The applicant agrees it shall utilize the standard measures for protection of the eastern indigo snake, as outlined in the latest snake protection and education plan developed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Condition 4. The applicant agrees it shall obtain all other applicable local, state, and federal permits before the commencement of site work. Condition 5. If any development is proposed to take place within a special flood hazard area, base flood elevations will be required to be established in accordance with Section 6.9.4 E1B of the city's LDRs at time of construction plans. Condition 6. At time of final plat, the applicant shall provide declarations and covenants showing compliance with all applicable conditions of the PD ordinance, Ordinance 2209, including limitations on fertilizers and wells on the property. Condition 7. At time of construction plans, the applicant agrees to address all comments as outlined in a memo dated October 31st, 2024 from Michael Carrillo, PE, Public Services Director, and Tom Ridgick, PE, Engineering Supervisor. Condition 8. The applicant agrees that the provided wetland and surface water boundaries are preliminary and subject to final review by the Swanee River Water Management District. The applicant shall notify the city at time of application for environmental resource permit through the Swanee River Water Management District. And condition 9, the applicant agrees that conditions 1 through 8, as stated above, do not inordinately burden the land and shall run with the land and be binding upon the property owner, including any subsequent property owners, successors, or assigns, and that the development shall comply with conditions 1 through 8 as stated herein.
Any other questions or comments, Commissioners? I just want, when you showed the area, kind of the aerial view of what's there, now there used to be, and the building's still there, but on the north side, right on 441, there was an antique house there. There used to be a gift shop and everything like that. And was that brought into this piece of property? I thought that a long time ago that it was brought into this major piece of property.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not familiar with that.
And when looking at Google Earth, on a computer, it shows it as it is right now with all the trees and everything like that. On the north side there, that backs up to Brook Point, there's a tremendous amount of trees in that buffer system. So that would be a real plus for Brook Point.
Correct, Mr. Mayor. So anything within the green area, which is the minimum 50-foot buffer, that's not what's being provided everywhere. That is the minimum. The plans do show that being exceeded in many locations up to that required average of 75 feet. No plant species or alteration of land or land clearing, none of that is permitted to occur in the required watercourse or wetland buffer areas.
Sure. That would mean that creek there behind.
That's correct. So the creek that runs from the northeast, northwest along that property line, and then feeds into Turkey Creek here, those all have the same buffer requirements applied.
Right. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments, Commissioners?
Mr. Mayor, is the applicant here? Is the applicant here? Is there a presentation?
I'm just asking if you have one. Applicant, would you like to say something, please?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. City Manager, Mr. Attorney. I'm Jay Brown with JB Pro. We're currently waiting to see if they've got our presentation queued up. Like it's coming here shortly. That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jay Brown again. We'll try to get this started. I'll try to be somewhat brief. I know we've got a lot of people here that want to talk tonight, but I'll also be available for questions if you have, upon conclusion of my presentation, and then, after you hear from the public, we'll be happy to come up and address any questions that are raised there as well. So the staff made a very good presentation that gave you a little bit of background. I'll try not to go too much over it, just pointing out that it is about 120 acres. We're proposing 182 lots. I think in their presentation they indicated that it could be a little bit more than that, but the phases that we're about to provide, phases 1 through 4, are just 182 single-family lots. What's that? Okay, sure. Evidently the clicker is not working, so I'll do that. Thank you very much. As was pointed out before with the staff presentation, we already went through a zoning and land use change for this property, and a PD was approved that issued the zoning requirements and standards for the property. The part that we're developing now is what you see on that left under current zoning, the PDR. So we are proposing today the residential component of the property, not the commercial and mixed-use property that would be some kind of future project or whatever as part of the PD. Again, this is a map. It just kind of shows the adjacent properties. It also points out a little clearer where the retention basins are on site, and the green areas are set-aside conservation areas and buffers to the development. In the PD plan, there was several land use types, and the land use types, mixed use are the blue ones that you see close to 441 and then also close to 43rd Street. And again, I think staff mentioned this, but we're not planning to make the connection to 43rd Street right now. This particular development only proposes the two connections to US 441. And the proposed are the green and the red that you see there. And some information. So the land use, the two land use for this residential were land use C and land use F. The land use C had a minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet, and it had a maximum proposed development of 164 units. Of those 164 units, there was a condition that up to 82 of them could be what are called cottage-style lots, which is a different, smaller size, of more affordable type of lot size. What we're proposing on the third column there is 131 of the minimum 5,000 square foot lots and 26 of the cottage-style lots. So it is a good bit less than the maximum development. And then also of the bigger lots, which are proposed on the perimeter, kind of adjacent to the creek, the maximum allowed was 49 lots, and we're proposing 25 of those lots. And so that'd be, on the right-hand side, that adds up to the 182 units that we're proposing. Again, this slide just points out that this is the preliminary plat master plan. This is what's submitted. It has all the documentation to document the limits of the phases. It has been reviewed by your staff and an outside review agencies documenting that it is in conformance with the PD. We'll briefly go through the four phases. The first phase you would see there in the red has the first connection to 441. It also includes two of the retention basins. The second phase would include the second phase to the second driveway connection to 441. There is another retention basin there. And then as you go through the third and fourth phase, that's fine. That's the third phase. And then the fourth phase includes the cottage-style lots where you can see kind of the little lots up to the north. And just north of that, in some of that open area, in answer to the mayor's question, that existing residence is to be preserved. It is part of the future commercial land, so it's not part of this development, but that is planned to be saved. So that existing structure is going to remain. And it's not within the lands of these first four phases, but it is to be preserved. Stormwater management, this is a big concern because of the creeks that are running through there. We've heard a lot from the neighbors about the stormwater that runs through the creeks and the amount of water that's through there and how important it is. So as has been pointed out a couple of times, we're proposing 4 stormwater retention basins for the property. We designed those retention basins in accordance with the City of Alachua standards, the Alachua County water quality standards, and also the Suwannee River Water Management District standards. And I should let you know that these standards are some of the most significant standards in the state of Florida. We have to design to the 100-year storm event, the critical duration storms for 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hour, 8 hour, 24-hour storms. So it's a very significant storm event that we have, as high a criteria as you have anywhere in the state. We have to design those retention basins so that we don't discharge any more in post-development conditions than is occurring on the site naturally to the creek in pre-development conditions. So our job as the consulting engineer and designer of these systems, and we do very complicated modeling systems when we're designing these, we do soil borings, we do all kinds of work necessary to define those properly, is to discharge less water off-site than is under the pre-development conditions. So when this development is done, there should be no negative impact to the creek or to the adjacent properties. We also performed traffic studies as we were initiating this project. The traffic studies, as staff mentioned in their presentation, outlined the concurrency in terms of the total amount of trips and that there was, concurrency available for traffic. I previously mentioned there are 2 driveways that are going to be connected to 441. The traffic study was coordinated with the DOT in terms of where the most likely location for those driveways should be and what kind of access we have. The actual permitting of those driveway connections will occur when we come back before you to do the final construction plans, when the city staff reviews our plans, reviews the actual design of the roadways, the design of the roadway connections. But we have outlined, and I'll present on the next slide, kind of where those locations are and what the proposal is. So if you can see there's 2 connections on 441 where those blue blocks are pointing to them. The one on the left is a directional connection where you would be allowed a southbound right in, and if you were leaving the development, a right out, and then also a northbound left turn in. And that would be allowed within the confines of the DOT and their median so that you could build the left turn. What wouldn't be allowed would be when you were leaving the development, a left turn out. And the DOT is very sensitive about those left outs. And they're really looking very carefully at those because they seem to believe that those are the biggest accident generator, the biggest safety issues, the biggest problems. So they will almost assuredly not allow what would be an eastbound left turn out of the development. So you would have to, if you were going to go north, you would have to take a right, get into the left turn lane and do a U-turn. So we've coordinated with the DOT, and there's lots of traffic studies that we have to do on this, and the DOT is very sophisticated with their traffic review from their traffic ops division, and they are convinced that that is a safer movement than allowing that left turn out. So we will not have what would be called a full median opening because of that one movement, the eastbound left turn out. The second connection, which would be a little bit further south, would only be a right in, right out. And that would not allow any movements to the north or, any left turns in. There would only be one connection that would allow the northbound left turn in. In the future, there would potentially be a connection in a future phase to 43rd Street. We've had very preliminary discussions with the county about that. There's been discussions about a possible roundabout there, but that has not been finalized at this time. That's not part of this application. But there is the potential for another connection on 43rd Street that would also allow a connection into the development as well.
Does it go back, does any of that land touch that used to be a dirt road, and it's called 93rd, I think it is?
It doesn't touch 93rd, but 93rd is just to the south of it. Okay. It's just to the south of that land. But yeah, 93rd is further south on 43rd. So no, it doesn't touch 93rd. And just some final conclusions. Our plan is submitted as a preliminary plat and PD master plan in accordance with Article 7 with your subdivision standards. Your staff and consultant review have indicated that our plan does meet the standards. It meets the other LDR requirements, as your staff mentioned. We have documented conformance with all the concurrency standards. We are in agreement that this development furthers the PD master plan and is in conformance with the PD master plan that was previously approved by this board, along with the PD agreement. Also want to let the board know that we are in agreement with the 9 conditions that were presented as part of this application, as part of this recommendation by your staff. So we are in agreement with those conditions. We have no problem with them. And with that, I'll end my presentation and be available for any questions you might have.
Any questions or comments, commissioners? I just want to ask a question. I did a study on some of the flooding that's on that side of, on the west side of 441. And back, I forget when it was. I don't know if it was way back in the 1900s or not, but GRU, because it's a wetland way over there, and it gets flooded quite a bit. They put some huge tubes underneath that 441.
They did.
And that feeds into some of those creeks that are in some of the land right there. And one of them is right there at 43rd Street and 441. It comes in that feeds into Turkey Creek. And when it's not every time it rains, but when you have a really bad rainy season, that land over there gets flooded, and it's like, almost like a lake sometimes. So you get a little bit more water running in there, especially if it's raining real hard. And I just want people to understand too, that that's one of the problems when it gets really rainy and nasty, that creek may overflow a little bit, to going in there, and then that ends up in Turkey Creek itself. So, that's just basic information.
You're correct, Mr. Mayor, and that is kind of the headwaters of Turkey Creek that flows
Right.
through there, that land to the east, that conservation land and the GRU land and all that land over there, and the culverts come under 441. Fortunately, that creek has been studied by FEMA, and there are good FEMA flood elevations all along that creek bordering our property. So we have the advantage of understanding a lot of times those areas aren't analyzed and you don't have flood elevations, but in this particular case there are. So we make sure that we build well above the floodplain. Any of our homes would be well above the floodplain. We know what those elevations are. So this area, because of former flooding, has been analyzed, and we have great information from FEMA with those flood elevations on the creeks that are adjacent to this property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, Commissioner?
Mr. Mayor, I just reserve the right to ask questions after I hear the citizen comments.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we'd be very happy to come back up and answer those questions. We'll try to keep track of anything, and if there's things we can add to help, we'll be happy to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, this is a little bit different from how we usually do our hearings, but this quasi-judicial hearing, because of the amount of the people here, we want to try to keep it as organized as we can. I think at this point, I would like to go ahead and state that an affected party is any person who will suffer an adverse effect to a property interest from the proposed application for the development permit. But the alleged adverse interest, it may be shared in common with other members of the community at large, but it must exceed the degree of general interest in the community that's shared for the good of all persons. The best example of an affected party is any person who has land adjacent to the land subject to the application for development permit is an affected party. So people here who are living contiguously would be affected parties. And in order to again have this proceed in an organized manner would be to have anyone who deems himself to be an affected party to come up, give their name, address, and say where they are in regard to this project so that it could be determined if they're an affected party. Now, just so everyone understands, if you're not an affected party, that just means you're going to be given you will have your opportunity to speak a little bit later on. It's the priority who comes forward first, but everyone will have the right to speak. It's just the affected party is first because of the number of people who are here, and we want everyone to have their opportunity to come up. The affected parties will go up first. If they wish to submit any type of evidence, they're more than welcome to do so. After that, we will get a motion on the floor, and then any other people who wish to come in and up and speak may also come up and speak. So that is how I suggest that we proceed. So anyone who deems himself to be believes that they are an affected party to come up now one at a time, give your name, your address, so there can be a determination if you're an affected party, and then you can go ahead and speak, and then the next person will come. Yeah, and again, if you would give your name, address, say that you've been sworn in. I think everyone has been.
I was sworn in. My name is Bill Berger. My property at 10,008 Northwest 50th Terrace, Brook Point, abuts this property.
Mr. Mayor, I would recommend that he be an affected party.
Good.
Okay.
Okay. I have some concerns. First of all, we're all taxpayers here, and progress comes and we understand it. I go back in time to 2009 when the Schmidt Farm was first being presented as a development. And at that time, when the the comprehensive plan of Alachua was submitted to the Department of Community Affairs, there were a whole series of projects on 441 starting in north, I think, of part of that. And the Department of Community Affairs sent a letter back to the mayor dated April 10th, 2009, saying that the analysis should be a maximum development potential allowed by all of this, what's happening. And when we go back to 2009, we've had a lot of development. We've had development north, and we have development on 441, and we have development on 43rd Street. On those turning lanes, Brook Point does not have a slow reducing speed turn-in because the DOT wouldn't grant it. Right now, I timed the other day, it's 0.4 of a mile from when I come out of Brook Point to when I come up to the turn to go on 43rd if I want to go that way. 0.4 of a mile. And interesting enough, there is a lane to do the U-turn, but there is no arrow. And one of those letters from the DOT that he referred to indicates they're not sure that that traffic light elbow is big enough to conform, and it would have to, somebody's going to have to add another arm on it in order to support even a turning lane. I just mentioned that thing. The buffer is a concern, that's fine. The other issue is, will there be sewer? Will sewer be, or will these be, are we all doing our own sewer septic systems?
They're writing down the questions.
Okay,
so they can answer them.
Okay, so that was a question. Would there be, and who monitors, let's see, and does the, so I'm just want to make sure that how we monitor once construction starts, and these houses, I understand, are higher than where the property abuts Brook Point on the side, and so water does run downhill. And if it doesn't work right, who do we go to seek redress, at least because of the water coming off? And that's a concern. And I guess, so I'm looking to make sure that eventually they go back and the DOT will approve these exits. And is that the city in the planning department that monitors that before construction starts? That's a question. And you've answered about the sewer. And so that's all I have. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
By the way, I'm chairperson of the Brook Point Homeowners Association. So add that to my affectionate.
I'd just like to say one thing. Brook Point and Staghorn and the other one, they were built back in the 80s and stuff when certain things were not required. And one of them was water retention like it is today, that you're required to retain your water on property, the runoff and everything like that. So that'll be addressed also. But I remember back in the day, there was going to be a Publix and a Target up there at one time or another. That just fell through. But anyway, go ahead, sir.
Could we have them respond to him so that
Please,
we
come up and
can make
respond to
sure
that
we
gentleman.
answer questions?
Mr. Mayor, Jay Brown with JB Pro. Sure, I got 3 questions there. I can try to respond to them. The first thing he asked is about a DOT letter that indicated that there might have to be a new mast arm or a new signal head or whatever at that intersection. And I believe he was referring to, what I was referring to is that U-turn movement, and he is correct. That would be required. We would have to redo that as part of our plan. We would have to get that permitted with the DOT. They would review, we'd provide signalization drawings for that improvement. So he's correct, that improvement will be required. And the DOT has made us aware of that as well. So the second question was about the sewer and whether or not it'll be public sewer or septic tank, and it will be public sewer. So we'll have sewer extended to the property, and all of the lots that we're proposing are going to be on municipal sewer. And the last thing is he was asking who would monitor the turning movements, the connections, and those would be designed to meet the subdivision standards of the city of Alachua, so they'd be reviewed by your staff and consulting engineers, whoever reviews those. But the DOT is the authority on the connection itself to the DOT, and so we would be getting a driveway connection permit with the DOT for all of those improvements, for both of those driveway improvements and for all of those turning movements. And we would provide them with traffic studies, we would provide them with design drawings, they would comment. Sometimes, it's a long drawn-out process. Their traffic ops people would be involved. There'd be multiple FDOT engineers reviewing as well. So I think the DOT does a really great job, and I can tell you it's a lot more significant and thorough in my career as I've seen it, recently. So I think they do a really outstanding job. So.
Well, two, I would like to see happen is that because these subdivisions down there were built, when certain things weren't required, and FDOT, I would like them to talk with the county and the FDOT about like a Staghorn, and then there's that Rizzo property right there, but deceleration lanes on each one of those, because as traffic increases, a deceleration is a godsend for people turning into their homes. So I'd like to see that at least discussed, with FDOT. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Berger mentioned that, and I believe he was also talking about a southbound right turn decel into Brook Point. And I do think that they could, write letters to the DOT, and I'd be happy to provide you information about the appropriate contact people, because, sometimes they will come in and put a, deceleration lane in for a development. And you're right, back in, I believe Brook Point was done in 1986, because it was just before I started, and I remember the project right as I started my career. Our company that I was with at the time had designed that subdivision. So,
all right. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mr. Brown, I believe there was one other question about water runoff.
Okay, maybe I missed that one. Did you have a question about water runoff?
It had to do with the property level.
Yeah, wait, whoa.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, you please.
There was.
I apologize. It had to do with the property level. He had said that it would be higher than Brook Point's homes. The houses would be built. Am I correct, Ms. Bridget?
Okay, I can definitely respond to that. We were just looking at that today, as a matter of fact. So, yes, the residents in the new development of Schmidt Farms, some of them will be higher in elevation than the residents' elevations in Brook Point. Brook Point's homes are, pretty close to one of the creeks that comes in there on the north side, and some of those homes are, in the 140s and 150s, and then in Schmidt Farms it might be in the low 150s to higher 150s. So it is relevant as you go further to the south in the Schmidt Farms development. The creek and the floodplain gets higher and higher. So I do believe that from what I've seen, most of the homes in Brook Point are built above the floodplain like they're supposed to be. And of course, we have criteria that we have to meet your standards, that we have to build our homes above the flood elevations. It's a minimum of 1 foot above the flood elevations. But in actuality, it's going to be a lot more than that, because there's the flood elevations of the creek, and then we're going to have our retention basins, which are higher than that, and then those flood elevations, we have to build above that. So it is correct that some of the homes in Brook Point are lower than that, but they're on lower portions of the creek also, which has lower floodplain elevations. I hope that answers his question. I'm sorry I missed that one. So.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've been sworn in. My last name's Watson, first name's Nigel. What sort of a timeline can we expect on a DOT-approved traffic plan? I know you're in the process of letters and talking to the DOT.
Excuse me, sir, could you give us your address? Because we need to determine that if
Sure,
you're an affected
yep.
party first.
My address is 4412 Northwest 93rd Ave, and my land smacks up against the proposed development.
Then, Mr. Mayor, then I recommend that he be deemed to be an affected party.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, please go forward. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, it's just about the timeline on the DOT-approved traffic plan. Because, I mean, when I look at it, and I know a lot of my neighbors look at it, and we know how much traffic, comes down and goes up the road, it just looks a little bit dangerous. And I live almost on the corner of 43rd and 93rd, and I hear accidents every day. I mean, you all live here, and you know that there's a lot of accidents at that corner, and we're out in our pastures, and we just hear smack. And my son's going to start driving in a couple of months, and that scares the hell out of me. And maybe some of your children or grandchildren are driving, and it should scare the hell out of you too. So that was my first question, DOT-approved traffic plan. My other question is, how many phases are there going to be? In total, how many phases? Is it 4? And in the 4 phases, is it just a total of 182 or 188 dwellings in total, full stop, nothing more? Just want to get clarification on that. Because many years ago, it was told to us that there were going to be like 500 and something because there were going to be apartment buildings right up against my pastures. But I don't know if the apartment buildings are still a thing or that's in another phase. We were also told earlier on in the night that there was going to be no entrance exit on 43rd. And then I heard, I don't know if anybody else heard, that there was going to be some entrance exit on 43rd and a roundabout, which I know a lot of people don't know how to navigate roundabouts. That's going to be pretty interesting. So that's an issue coming off 441, coming down 43rd and hitting a roundabout in front of you. So I'm really scared about the traffic. I just want that out there. I'd like to see a good plan. I think coming out of Staghorn, hanging a right and flooring it to get in the outside lane to do a U-turn is something that I would need a very powerful car to do. I can't do it in any of my vehicles, but I think that's really dangerous. The DOT probably says that's a good idea, but do they really know the distance when you come out of that? Hang a right to do a U-turn and come back towards Alachua. I heard JB Pro does good work. I heard that some of their work is good. Probably a lot of their work is good. But I just wanted to get that out there that I'm really nervous about traffic. I know a lot of my neighbors are really nervous about traffic. And there's other things too, like flooding and water. And, Turkey Creek runs through my property. But traffic is my big thing. So I'm going to leave that with you. I'm going to go to dinner. And I'll look forward to the answers. And Karen's going to take those down for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'll be happy to come up after each one and try to address those. The first question was about the traffic timeline for an FDOT to work on the FDOT turn lanes and that sort of thing. So tonight is, of course, getting the preliminary plat approved. The next phase would be phase 1, which would be the first time that we would go to the DOT to do one of the driveways on 441. I can tell you that that is not scheduled right at this moment, exactly what that schedule is. But the process probably takes about 6 to 8 months to go through the process, to design the construction drawings, to submit them and go through the process with the City of Alachua, and also during that same review time to get a permit with the DOT. It can sometimes be longer than that. It depends on the complexity of the design and the issues and DOT's turnaround times and the City of Alachua's turnaround times, our clients. We're at the mercy of our clients also in terms of their schedule, and if for some reason they slow something down, that could be but I would say 6 to 8 months, maybe a year. And the process itself with the DOT is usually 2 to 3 months. But we try to run that concurrently as we're going through the review process with the city of Alachua. The other question that he had is about the total number of phases. He said, is the 182 lots, is the 4 phases only including 182 lots? And the answer to that is yes, these 4 phases are only 182 lots, but this is only the land of the PDR portion of the PD. There is another component of the PD, which is the PD-COM, which is the commercial property, which also includes mixed use. So there is the potential that those could include additional residential units. That is not under design right now by our firm or anybody that I'm aware of. So we really have no way to project that as far as what those future units are going to be at this point. But it's not currently on any planning process at the moment. And that does include the connection to 43rd Street. So this phase that we're working on getting approval tonight does not include the connection to 143rd Street. And he talked, when he asked about that, talking about the roundabout, that connection to 43rd Street would actually be permitted with Alachua County and the Alachua County Public Works Department. We've had very preliminary discussions with them. There has been discussion about a roundabout, but that is not in concrete. It could only be maybe a right in, right out, maybe a northbound left turn. We aren't designing that right now, so we haven't done much with the county on that connection at this point. So just to be perfectly straightforward and transparent on that, that's only been a very preliminary, very, one meeting discussion about that roundabout. It's definitely not in stone. So just want to be clear on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, good evening. My name's Jim Carrington, and I live at 10015 Northwest 52nd Terrace. My name's on the drawing for the plat. There are 8 homes on that plat with names on them, and we're on the creek. What creek it is, I'm not sure because of the branches, because as the mayor said, water comes off from everywhere. We have a bridge into the property, but I'm not sure it's a bridge or it's a culvert over. But they're, Mayor, they're 3-foot diameter pipes, 2 of them together running under the bridge, and then down the road a little bit, there's 2-foot or a foot and a half, 2 culvert pipes running down there.
All right,
So it is set up. So am I available to talk? Or
Well, no,
allowed
I
to
just
talk?
wanted to say, based upon the description he has given of his property, it would be my recommendation for the mayor to find that he was an affected party.
And I don't know if I should speak now or speak later, but I do want to mention a couple of things. One, first I want to start out the void IR. I was concerned that some people did not get a letter from me or a handwritten note. So I sent handwritten notes to 4 of the commissioners, and I sent a letter to the mayor with copies to 4 of the commissioners.
They were put into each office.
So those people who said they didn't get notified of anything ahead of time, could we clear that up and tell me whether...
Mr. Mayor, as just for clarification, that part of that was information that wasn't provided by the city. I believe your email, your letters were put into the record, so it's a part of the backup.
Okay, were the handwritten notes
Yes, sir.
Also put in the record?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And
When
also,
they
sir-
answered your question, Madam Rush, does that mean they were contacted or not contacted?
I'm not following you at all. But
Okay.
you're here, it has been determined that you are an affected party, and this is your time to talk. And I realize additional time can be granted, but we want to go through here very methodically and let everybody get time up here to talk. So when you said you don't know if you should talk now or later, so that is where we are.
Well, I just wanted to know if everybody got my letter.
Yes, and
That's all I want to know.
Yeah, and and you're
They said
exactly right.
no. You said you did not get my letter. You said you.
It's in the backup, so it was provided by the city to them. So the answer is they were contacted, but the part of the explanation when they were asked in the Fort Dyer was anything that wasn't provided by the city. So your information was provided by the city. So
yeah, in other words, yes,
they
it
weren't
has
contacted
been provided
outside
to
of that.
them.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I misunderstood then. So since I'm qualified, you mean you don't want me to speak now, Madam Attorney?
No.
Let's go ahead. I'll try and make it quick.
No, and you have time, so don't rush.
The steamroller is moving right along, but I'm not concerned about that. I am concerned about the big picture, and that is, the development of the Good Life community. I think, using as a basis for selection of this property and the plan that the planning and zoning people recommended. 2 members of the zoning people were not, that was their first time on the board. First time they voted. I grant you, they all probably know much more than I do, but they've had no experience with all the rest of the history of the community. The school board representative who helps with concurrency didn't show up. Does that mean that, maybe there was an emergency, certainly we understand that, but didn't show up. That being said, for me, I've just got an issue that's of importance, and that is trees. Will the tree ordinance be paid attention? I'm concerned about fauna and flora, as they say. You're supposed to say fauna first and then flora. I'm concerned about that because that is a quality of life that is not addressed. And I would hope that it would be addressed, especially when it comes to preservation and the vitality and life of the creek. If the conservation area, and again, I'm not expert on this, is the conservation area also considered a retention pond? Does that mean, or is some conservation area, so that's a question, is some conservation area a retention pond, or is all conservation area a retention pond? Will trees be adhered to? I know we have our prejudices against pine trees. I think there are some old growth pines in there, though, in our neighborhood that I hope they wouldn't be destroyed. Is it going to be a tree mitigation project? Will there be clear cutting? I appreciate Mr. Brown and I really look forward. I want to share that area, but I want it to be a beautiful area for everybody. And the last thing I would think is, do we have to settle for the minimum of the standard as opposed to maybe an improved standard? Your history, commissioners and mayor, has been to buffer developments with fences, berms, trees, shrubs, roads. I've sat in these meetings and listened to you talk about who can go water, close off this entrance, or what we can do. So are we going to do nothing but use a 50-foot minimum standard for this creek and the fauna and flora here? I ask you to please make sure you take that into consideration and continue with your history of good, sound development.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, again, I'll try to address a couple of things I heard. Is the conservation area a retention pond? No. So the conservation area and all the trees within it will be saved. The retention basins are not in the conservation areas. So there's conservation areas running along both creeks, and then there's a large conservation area in the center of the project. So all the trees, all the natural flora and fauna will be saved in those areas. The retention basins are above that, beyond the conservation areas. Will the tree standards be adhered to? Will there be tree mitigation? I suspect there will be some tree mitigation. There will be some trees removed, of course. The site will not be clear cut because we have so much conservation area and so many trees that'll be saved. We have all the areas that aren't even being developed also, so there'll be a ton of trees left when we're finished with these 4 phases. There will be areas where the residential lots are going to be, small lots that will be cleared of all trees. Any trees that might be on a property line or whatever and are significant species, they can be saved. And we will adhere to all standards of Alachua County. City of Alachua, your staff will make sure that we adhere to your landscape standards for tree saves, for tree mitigation. So we will have to conform to those mitigation standards.
And one thing about the trees, the tree buffer that's backs up to their properties, that's pretty big. And you said already that that's going to all stay there.
Yes, correct.
Right.
That is correct. And then he made another comment about minimum standards, and I'm not exactly sure how to address that, but I will just say that we'll comply with all of your standards. So.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else affected party? We're in a different phase right now, ma'am. Ma'am, please, we're in a different phase right now.
My name's Bryce Berger. I live at 5001 Northwest 102nd Place in Brook Point, and I point down right on the creek.
Mr. Mayor, based upon this testimony, I recommend that he be awarded affected party status and
Okay.
proceed. Thank you.
Mayor Kerper, Vice Mayor, Commissioners.
Can I get you to talk into the mic?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm a landscape architect in town. I've worked with Jay. He's a friend, he's a colleague, CHW. I live in Brook Point, and I share, the major concerns. I guess I want to share something with you, Mayor and Commission, that this project and the Rizzo and the Staghorn, they're not, we know this watershed on the east side of town. We've talked about this. These guys are going to do the best, exceptional stuff, but unless we address the problem we have here and ask for initiatives and, reach out to these guys, we're going to have more of the same, I believe. We've worked together. We have a flood problem, and we don't want to create more harm. And we have 3 major projects on this watershed, and you're our leaders. And I know you're aware of it, but we need you with us to ask for help. I have yet, respectfully, to hear any kind of, how do we solve this? What are our opportunities to solve this? It's like in Gainesville, Robin Lane, no lift station, or down farther by Meadowbrook. We're walking into something that we have an opportunity now to address on a watershed that we know has a problem. And I guess that's what we're looking to you for, to ask for initiative. Because these guys they will jump forward, but, their clients and their budgets require the maximum they can do, and they're great professionals. But unless we say, hey, we can do better. We can do better. And, there's other stuff. They're going to do, they're good. They're really good, all of them. And, we have to take the initiative. And that's what I guess I'm asking, you know, are we going to ask them to do something and help us? And, you know, what are our options? Are we just going to have more of the same, you know, and the county can't come in, it's in the city. Or they will if we ask and work together. But that's what's kind of, you know, as a professional landscape architect and colleague with these guys, I'm like, you know, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to stamp it, say, oh, you know, maybe it'll go away? 3 new projects on this watershed that we know that already floods. And that's all. That's, you know, I appreciate what you do, and I would just ask that you kind of take a second look at that part, because they'll help. You know, these owners, I mean, they have a right to develop, and, you know, but we know we have a problem. Thank you.
I'd like to, if you're going to get up and say something. I'd like to, you know, I don't think Schmidt Farm is going to be a problem here. What's happened in the past now, I mean, a long time ago, when Brook Point and this other subdivision, Staghorn, they were built before it was mandatory for water retention. And as beautiful as Brook Point is, I mean, everything goes downhill. I know they have swales on the side and everything, but a lot of that water does not get retention, and that some of it can run off the road in the cul-de-sacs and everything and go into the creek behind them and everything like that and run into yards and whatnot, because it does go down. So, I mean, that was, they followed the rules and regulations back in the 80s when those were built. But in today's world, that would not be allowed. And so, like he said, working together is going to be really good, but how can we, is it going to have to be completely redone in each one of those subdivisions about water retention, or how maybe the county or FDOT or the Suwannee River Water Management could help make some decisions to make that happen?
Mr. Mayor, I think you're right about that completely. I also respect Mr. Berger. Bryce is a fantastic landscape architect, and I've worked with him for many, many years. He does awesome work, and I appreciate all of it, not just him, but everybody here that's concerned about flooding. The creeks do flood, and that's why they are designated as floodplains. They do flood, and I think you hit the nail on the head in the sense that he mentioned Robin Lane in Gainesville, and I can think of Turkey Creek in the hills of Santa Fe and some places where there's been a lot of flooding in Gainesville. And those, of course, were things that were designed long, long time ago that weren't designed to today's standards. And that's where, you know, a lot of our public works issues and things that we're dealing with are because of the, you know, call it the sins of the past, but we didn't have the retention standards that we have today. So very few new developments are posing those same kind of problems. So, you know, I understand what he's saying and what can you do. And what I would say what you can do is make sure that those 3 new developments, and of course we're only involved in this one, but I am aware of the other 2, make sure that they don't exacerbate the problem. That is the key, is just make sure that everything that happens with these developments are not going to exacerbate the problem, make it any worse. And I think when we come through in the final construction plan stage and we present our plans for our stormwater design, the final design details and design of that system, your staff and your review folks that you sometimes, and we do it for you as the City of Alachua sometimes on projects that we're not involved in, where a consulting engineer will also help and review those plans. Do a great, thorough job. Make sure that Suwannee River is doing a great, thorough job. I mean, that's what we're doing, is just make sure that these developments are not going to continue to make the problem any worse. And, you know, from our standpoint, that's what we're going to do. And we're going to make sure that our designs are consistent with all the standards that we're designing for these, you know, incredible amounts of rainfall we have in the design storms that we designed for, and that we're not discharging any more than is naturally occurring there. So I think your standards require that of your consultants. And so I'm hopeful that you do have good consultants on all of these 3 projects that will, you know, make sure that they're designing that way. So to me, that's the answer, is just make sure that it's done properly so these developments don't cause any more problem, don't add to the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Any affected parties?
Good evening, Claudia Rasnick, 10016 Northwest 52nd, that's 52 Terrace, Brook Point. My land is directly next to Schmidt Farms. I'm actually in the back part of Brook Point subdivision.
Mr. Mayor, based upon this testimony, I recommend that the speaker be granted the status of an affected party.
So I think Mr. Berger, the landscape architect, and even Mr. Brown hit on this perfectly. It's a complicated issue. You have 3 new developments coming in, all having their individual impacts, and the developers, their responsibility is to not make things worse. And I hope they actually make some things better. But we have an existing problem in these 3 subdivisions, and we all know it's there. We all know it's in Turkey Creek as well. And so when you come down Brook Point, it's actually, if you ever want to take a field trip, you should go out there and actually look at the topography. So from my home, looking at Schmidt Farms, it's art. I can see the elevation. I can visually see the elevation. And when you come down between Schmidt and Brook Point, there is a chasm between the 2 pieces of land that actually carry all of that water. That water comes from multiple places. It's just naturally flowing that way, but there hasn't been any maintenance to the infrastructure. And I think that's the missing piece, is what are we doing with the infrastructure that exists? Do we clean it out? Do we put in culverts? Do we do different things? But I never really hear that. And I think that's part of that conversation, is a holistic approach. Particularly, and I heard another speaker say that there's 4,500 homes coming into the city of Alachua. We're not going to be the only issue. There are going to be other issues inside of the city, so what do we do going forward in a comprehensive fashion? Because again, everybody wants to live here, but it needs to be a safe place for everybody to live. So my question really, I guess, is for the commission itself, like what are the future plans to deal with the infrastructure itself? I have sent emails to City of Alachua staff, and I have gotten no response. I have no one in my neighborhood working on anything, and I just don't know what's happening. I have emails from about 10 years ago where there was admittedly a storm drain issue, but there's been no work. So I'd really like to just sit down and just talk with someone about what's happening, what are the plans for the future, how are we going to deal with this together? And I think Mr. Berger hit it. It's a we thing. It's not you, it's not us, it's not the developer, it's all of us together. So how do we fix this? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Affected party?
Mr. Mayor, if no one else wishes to be an affected party, I suggest that we get a motion on the floor and then we open it up for public comment for the rest of the people to be able to come up and speak.
What's your pleasure, commissioners?
Mr. Mayor, I move the staff recommends that the City Commission approve the preliminary plat for Schmidt Farms, subject to the 9 conditions provided in Exhibit A and located on page 27 of the staff report.
A second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Would anyone from the audience like to comment on the motion on the floor? Please state your name for the record, please.
My name is Karen Arrington. It was said that in the special flood zones, they would have base flood elevation requirements. Does this mean you're going to be filling in flooding areas? I'd like to know that. We shouldn't be filling in stuff. Number 2, talking about the killdeer, they said if discovered in survey, you didn't say what would be done. These are ground-dwelling birds. You didn't say they didn't say what would be done if they found them. Also, there are sandhill cranes on that property. We hear them all the time during the seasons when they come and go. Not one mention has been made about the sandhill cranes. I'd like to correct a statement. Actually, there were 23 people at the neighborhood meeting on March 11th, and at that time, at least 3 people had not gotten notice of that meeting. There should have been another neighborhood meeting. It wasn't what happened was not according to your codes. So, okay, so they said that there's going to be permitting would occur at the final construction plans. When will the public meetings be about that? Are we going to be left out again? And then it was said that the future phase to 43rd Street, when will there be a public meeting about that? And there's going to be neighborhood meetings about all these different new phases. I'd like to know there's be public meetings. Also, all this stuff about flooding and retention ponds. Flooding is getting worse. Climate is getting worse. As was admitted, hold on. Anyway, you cannot control flooding. It's going to get worse with these developments. The engineers are not knights in shining armor that are going to control everything with retention ponds. These retention ponds are going to flood themselves. And if they're not maintained, they're going to overflow. Who's going to maintain them? Right now, we have such a flooding problem in Turkey Creek when there are floods. 75 feet is not enough. They're lakes. You can ask people who live on the creek. It becomes a lake. The hard surfaces, there's going to be a huge amount of hard surfaces in this development, more runoff. And what was mentioned in the staff report, which no one is mentioning now, is that 94.7% of the soils in Schmidt Farm are poorly or very poorly drained. It is not suitable for building. 94.7%. Poorly or very poorly drained. So it's going to run off more than that. Engineering will not solve this problem. So Adam Hall, in 2021, I believe it is, when he asked Adam Doyle of FDOT, should the southbound to northbound U-turn be signalized due to the increased volume of traffic from the project that will be making new U-turn movements and or due to the high-speed classification of US 441 at 43rd Street and the associated traffic concerns, traffic safety concerns. He said, and the associated traffic safety concerns. I have no confidence in what I'm hearing tonight. And you all should be dedicated to sustainability and for the future of future generations. And constant intense development will not allow for this. You need to deny this development. And if you do, it would be a miracle, something I've never seen in the city of Alachua.
Anyone else?
Brian Bisher, good evening again. I've got a lot of notes to go through here, so I'm just going to go super fast. Number one, One of the things that doesn't match up in the overall plan related to your comprehensive plan is you're not minimizing sprawl with this development. In fact, you're maximizing sprawl. In your notes, you noted that the people speaking at the neighborhood meeting, but you didn't note the number of people speaking at the planning and zoning meeting. There were a lot of people that spoke there. None of them were in favor of this. Big question I have, I love this marketing tool of cottage-style lots. What are they, really? Are they townhomes, attached homes, condos? That isn't clear. Mixed-use commercial, as you know, y'all recently increased the ability to put units in mixed-use commercial by 50% by modifying your comprehensive plan. And so that brings it up to 15 units an acre. And shouldn't that be accounted for now, not later? Let's see, the road in the picture, unfortunately, you weren't able to put that picture up at Tamara's request. The road shows a connection with 43rd through their commercial part. That actually goes through the wetlands in the buffer area. How are they going to accomplish that? Speaking of wetlands, the wetlands on your more detailed plan, I had a chance to look at that at the planning and zoning meeting. It actually crosses over several lots. Seriously? I mean, they say it's not going to impact it, but the lines, I mean, I can look at the lines, they go across the lots. Building above the floodplain, is that going to solve it? I think the question was how much fill is going to be required. We don't know what that is. Right, it's a phased plan on a relatively small, intensely developed area, and basically you've got the three-card Monte approach to development going on here. You're not looking at the impacts of the whole development, only what's before you. So this phased aspect, hey, that may seem great when it comes down to approving the actual plot plans. It's not going to give you all the information you need. So speaking of information that you need, you've got conditions, right, presented by the staff, 9 of them, great, but they're really toothless. Why not require the studies like for wildlife before the approval, before you give approval tonight, right? Why not amend that condition? You have the ability to do that. Because if you approve it tonight, you're approving it with little knowledge of what your wildlife impacts are. Someone mentioned sandhill cranes, right? That isn't in the report. Why not require an environmental study? So why not also condition the development to participate in the solution of increasing infrastructure, right? Somebody mentioned, hey, you've got 3-foot pipes leading into 2-foot pipes. Never works. I mean, if you guys know hydrology, and I know, Mayor, you've testified tonight related in favor of this project related to hydrology. If you know anything about hydrology, it takes far more 2-foot pipes to accommodate water that's flown through 3-foot pipes. You're asking for trouble. Your FDOT reviews kicked down the road again. Mr. Brown brought up the traffic circle at the planning and zoning meeting, but maybe that's just a red herring. Mayor, you testified that in the past this wouldn't be allowed. Or actually, you testified that the surrounding developments wouldn't be allowed, but yet aren't they on larger lots than what this is? So you're comparing apples to oranges. So, you know, I think the important part here, right, is that you have an opportunity tonight to say, hey, this needs to be looked at farther. All right, we actually need to kick this back to the planning department, you know, the planning department, right? And have them come up with a better design for this project. Maximizing the amount of lots on a piece of land is great from a developer standpoint. It's not great from a community standpoint. You have a fiduciary responsibility to the community, right, in order to protect us. You're not doing that if you approve this project in its current form. I've got 10 more minutes worth of stuff to say, but my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. I did ask for the map to be put up. It would be very helpful
State
if the
your name
map
for the
was up
record,
there. My
please.
name is Tamara Robbins. If you could put the map up so that we had something to refer to rather than just verbal. Why is this so difficult? I mean, seriously. You guys work for us. Why can a map not be put up there so that we can see what we're all talking
Mr.
about?
Mayor, they're putting the map up.
Well, thank you, Mr. Manager. I appreciate that. Geez, it only took 30 seconds plus all the other times to ask for it. Okay, so just confirm that this meeting is being recorded? Yes, Mr. Mayor, it is? Okay. There was one of the standards up there that it said, one of the conditions, the standard measures for protection of the eastern indigo snake were going to be adhered to. I'd like to know what those are. And they're going to do that after, when they start construction. So that's a question. I'd like to know what that is. I want to know if there's being any water testing being done for arsenic out on any of that property because of the cattle dip vats that existed out there before. There's arsenic in some of the wells of people who have adjacent or property off there on 93rd. So, Mr. Mayor, you have stated that Brook Point and Staghorn, well, they were developed many years ago when they wouldn't have been allowed. Well, they're here and they pay taxes. And you still are responsible to provide services to the people who live in the city of Alachua. So when there's conditions that exist, you don't get to just look the other way and go, well, wouldn't have been able to be built today. It's a problem. That whole corridor is wet all the time on the south side of 441. It doesn't take a big rain. Walk out on Brook Point. The sidewalks ooze water. There's water running all over out there. Well, yeah, thank you for the history lesson, Mr. Mayor, that they wouldn't have been able to be built today. Well, they are built today, and they're paying taxes. And you are under obligation to not do any more harm to cause these people harm. They are affected parties. So it's time that you started doing some comprehensive planning. Comprehensive planning, there's a reason for adopting a comprehensive plan. And you know what the whole real point of it is? You're supposed to stick to it. You guys change your comprehensive plan so fast the planning department can't keep an official zoning atlas. You know why? Because they have to change it like every day. And that is a fact. You need to stop changing the plan. And now that you have the plan change of all these developments, why don't you look at them comprehensively? FDOT would not give that Rezo storage unit a curb cut off 441 because it's too dangerous. And you think they're going to allow that one exit out of there to go down and make a U-turn? That south exit out of this property is on that off-ramp as you go off 43rd. Does that sound safe to you? That is a high-speed classification roadway. People travel 70 miles an hour easy on that road all day long. Do you think it's a good idea? Like it was stated, the buck stops with you. This is a local planning issue. Or, in your case, non-planning issue. You guys need to stop with the insanity of approving every single thing that comes down this chute because you know you're going to get money in your coffers and you still won't stream your meetings because you say you can't afford it. It's ridiculous. The Planning and Zoning Board doesn't do their annual required review of the capital improvement plan. They don't do that. Staff doesn't give it that to do. They're supposed to do it. You guys need to pump the brakes. No, you need to slam on the brakes on this project and get this whole corridor in a group setting. You need to get FDOT here. You need to get DEP here. You need to get the water district here. And you need to hash this stuff out and find out what is going on with this corridor and the developments that were allowed in historically allowed and are here and what you're going to do about it. Because to keep doing this, kicking the can down the road and piecemealing is insanity. And I mean, I can't even get a drain culvert cleaned out in my neighborhood, so I can't imagine down all the way to Brook Point. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Good evening, all. Rudy Rothsiden. Thank you for my time. Thank you for hearing all the presentations tonight. I go back to a meeting I attended when we changed our LDRs for development. It was sponsored by developers, and we accepted it. We changed the rules so we could have more developers come to our town, not local, national developers, people from out of this area. I question, who are we serving? Are we serving our current constituents, or are we serving what our future constituents might be? And that's a kind of a double-sided question, because, you know, some of our future constituents might be a great plus to our world. But when you allow them to come in, the developers to come in here and make the rules, we have developments that happen like this, and we have more of them. And my mother was almost killed at that intersection there. She was coming out, someone ran the red light, smashed into her. If she would have been hit a quarter of a second later, it would have been a complete T-bone. She would have died on site. That is a very dangerous intersection. I travel that way for school with my daughter every morning. Every morning, I am avoiding people trying to swerve into that turn lane on the 43rd. That time frame from pulling out onto 441 from these new proposed neighborhoods is going to be a huge issue, especially with people wanting to go back to visit our beautiful Alachua, because otherwise you're sending all south away from Alachua. I think that's going to be a very big issue. Dealing with FDOT, that's not something that happens overnight. Conversations were brought up about from 3 years ago that have not been accomplished and satisfied. So I question that as well. Mr. Brown stated about the tree standards, and the staff will keep up with this. Who on our staff is going to keep up with this? Can I ask that question? Who keeps up with tree standards? Tree mitigation? Who on our staff does that? Can we answer that? The planning department. We have 3 of our 4 planning department members leave, right? 3 of the 4 have left. We're putting an undue burden upon a single planner, which I hear might be leaving somewhere else as well. That's all hearsay, but I have a large question of why is our planning department leaving? Why are we going to continue putting forth development plans when our planning department is missing? We've had some long-term planners here, and I might not agree with all what they've said, but they've been here for the long stay, and why are they all leaving now? Wetlands, they are precious. They are our life. They are what filter our water. For an engineer to say that, and our staff to say it will not degrade the property in any manner, it will have 0 negative impacts to the creek. That philosophy is so flawed. Development impacts. Development has effects. To say it has 0 is so flawed. Say what those flaws are. Talk about them. Work them. Reason them out. What are the best plans of scenarios? Our dais has the ability, like Mr. Brucher said, to ask for more studies to happen now. Environmental studies, wildlife studies. Once we say, okay, that stuff can be pushed under the rug, and it doesn't seem to happen as much. And I really worry and question about that. And I have some other things to say, but nonetheless, I appreciate you all, and I know that is a very difficult intersection, and my main concern is wildlife, is our water, is protecting what our natural beauty is. We have land in this town, and once it's developed, it's gone. we'll never get that land back. Some housing development people coming in, yes, is progress. And the idea of, if you're not growing, you're dying is another flawed thought as well. I think we need to really look at what is going to be best for our current constituents of our wonderful town of Alachua. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioners? Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if it's questions for JB Pro or for our staff. I'll let you guys determine when I ask it. That's okay with you, Mr. Mayor? That's okay with you, Mr. Mayor? If I just ask and let them, hold on. Jay, this is probably a question for you. If you could if it's been determined, if you could clarify the intention of cottage lots.
Sure. Mr. Mayor, Madam Commissioner, cottage lots are a smaller single-family residential lot. The idea is that we would build a smaller, more affordable home. So it's still a single-family detached style unit, but it's smaller than, say, some of the conventional homes that are being built today. And the whole intent is to have smaller lots with a particular design that gives each lot an access to open space. There are certain standards that the city of Alachua has in their code that we have to adhere to, but they are detached lots. They're smaller in size, so it's, kind of offer affordability. They wouldn't normally have garages, for example, because they don't have direct vehicular access like that. So it's a new concept that's gaining traction in a lot of places to create more affordable units.
Okay. Did you, okay.
I just wanted to read in the definition that we have for cottage homes in the land development regulations, as well as cottage neighborhood. A cottage home means a principal residential dwelling located within a cottage neighborhood and consistent with the standards in Article 4 of these LDRs. Cottage neighborhood is defined as cottage neighborhood means a collection of cottage homes clustered around by common green space. They do not directly front roadways.
Thank you. Thank you.
There are some places by Buchholz that are cottage homes that are kind of back in there a little bit, but I've seen those also. And about
Can I?
No.
Can I ask a question? What width is affordable? What I want to know what you're estimating the affordable of the homes, of cottage homes then.
That's a tough question. The sizes are much less, so if you just talk about say $100 a square foot or whatever, and the cottage home might be 2/3 the size, it would be 2/3 the value. So if a single-family residential home in there is $300,000, maybe the cottage home would be $200,000. But I don't set the prices of these homes, and that's done by the market and the developers and the builders. And but the idea is one of the problem is, as you know, home prices are going up and up and up, and one of the problems is it's a dollars per square foot issue. So the cottage homes are trying to create smaller units that have nice aesthetics, so the people that don't need a bigger home or what's maybe an acceptable size home to a lot of American families still have an opportunity, like a young couple or a retired couple, for example, or an individual retiree, for example. So they can do a 1,000 square foot home or even a 800 or 900 square foot home, and it would still suit their needs, but it would be much less expensive.
Jay, the PD commercial, that's
Yes.
that's the north and east side of the right?
That is correct. Kind of the blank space that you see up there along 41 and 43rd Street. Yes,
Okay.
correct.
And when you were talking about mixed use, is the intention of that, is it, can I use Tioga as an example?
Sure.
Where it's like light commercial on the bottom and then
Residential
residential on the second
Yes.
story? Is
Yes.
that that's, okay.
Yes.
Talking about, a little more about the trees on the property. And you've been here before, you know I ask about this. So, I know this is preliminary, I understand that.
Yes.
So I know it can change if it needs to. So will you, not you personally, but when they're getting into the property, if they're finding, I think they're called legacy trees, heritage trees, I apologize, don't know the proper terminology for them. If they're finding them in a location that is supposed to have a lot, has that been discussed? I know it's not your decision totally, you have a client, but has that been discussed? Yeah.
I can't say that it's been discussed because we haven't started working on those final plans, but we have kind of looked at the trees throughout the project.
Okay.
And I didn't see any big legacy conflicts that were occurring. A lot of the nicer trees are in the conservation area in the center of the project, but there are scattered trees throughout. And I haven't really done that exact analysis, to be perfectly honest. But it's not uncommon for us if we do find, like a nice live oak cluster or something, that we would eliminate a lot and create a little park around it or a playground or something like that. Contrary to popular belief, there are a lot of developers that see as much value in that as other people do. So those trees can add a lot of value to a development as well. So
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I would expect.
We would absolutely look at that. I know from our standpoint, in terms of the planning ourselves, that we would absolutely look at that.
Okay.
And so would your staff, by the way. They would pay attention to, the trees and that sort of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
The green area, not in the middle, but the buffering, the green area there. I know you said it's going to vary between, if I understood correctly, please correct me if I didn't. It's going to vary between 50 to 75 feet depending on where it falls on that, correct?
Correct.
Average. Average is 75 feet.
Yeah, it goes up to 100, in some places.
Oh, it does?
But yeah,
Okay, in
because
some
of
places.
the average, some places it's closer to the 50. Yeah.
Okay. And currently, what is in that area now?
Well,
because you said you'd be leaving it.
Yeah.
If I understood. Okay.
Well, the reason why it's there, of course, is because at the perimeter is the creek.
Okay, right.
And the creek is,
Yes.
kind of jagged as it flows through, and that kind of creates the property line, actually, where the base of the creek is.
Yep.
So it's heavily wooded in most areas, and so all of that would remain.
Okay.
I mean, that is generally the creek and the vegetation associated with the creek.
Okay. In looking at the conditions that you've already agreed to on the record, I was curious about, hold on, let me scroll down here. Okay. Condition number 8. I know it says that the applicant will notify the city when the application for the ERP is submitted to Swanee River Management District. How, and this may be a staff question, what's the process on that? Do they, I assume Management District lets us know, lets you know, like what happens once you submit your application to them? What's that?
Start,
what happens?
Carson, if you want to respond also. So they are.
Could I just ask one question, Mr. Mayor? Could we put the conditions up so everybody can see them?
Thank you, Commissioner.
That was part of your presentation, yeah.
So at this time, we're discussing condition 8 on the slides.
Okay, so I think the purpose of that is for exactly what you said, that when we do make the application to Swanee River Water Management District, we notify the city of Alachua, so they're aware of that review process. But We submit the same materials to the city of Alachua to review as we do to the Water Management District. It includes application forms, it includes stormwater management calculations, our modeling, all of the design plans, design details, all that kind of stuff we submit to the city of Alachua for review, and then we also submit them to Swanee River. So there isn't a formal process of notification in the process that I'm aware of, so this condition requires that we do that. And not exactly sure why that's there, other than just to make sure that we are doing that, going through that process, and that the timeliness of it is important in terms of, I'm sure in this particular case, the city wants to make sure that that review is done prior to getting any approvals for the project. And a lot of times they're completely independent processes and they're not tied to each other. So we're fine tying it together here and making sure that we notify staff. We can provide copies of our applications. Whatever staff intends with that condition, we'll cooperate with.
So the concern that arose from staff during review, which prompted this condition, was actually the first sentence in that condition. The applicant agrees that the provided wetland and surface water boundaries are preliminary and subject to final review by the Swanee River Water Management District. It is the Swanee River Water Management District's duty to delineate those wetlands officially. Until then, they're just preliminarily delineated. If those lines do not match what's on the preliminary plat, the applicant will have to come back before you and amend the preliminary plat. That's the main purpose of that being there. The notification is just to make us aware of when we can go and check those lines.
So Water Management District will notify city or notify applicant?
The applicant will be required to notify us, and we'll ensure that they get notification to us during the construction plan review phase.
Okay.
If we don't receive notification and we're already on construction plan review, that'll raise the red flags.
Okay, all right. And then,
Mr. Mayor, and Madam Commissioner, that is a good explanation. Thank you. I wasn't aware of that, but that does make sense because Swanee River does determine the wetland boundaries. The only thing I would try to clarify, hopefully, is that if there is a slight discrepancy or something in that, it doesn't necessarily mean we have to resubmit the preliminary plat. There are certain requirements in the preliminary plat where if you do certain things, you would have to come back before and do that.
Mr. Mayor, we would review that at the time of the alteration to see if it qualifies for an administrative review of alteration. Those are generally very minimal, and most things will remain as is. Anything major, again, that's in our code, that's not defined by us as staff.
Right.
That'll be brought before you again as an amendment.
Thank you. Carson, if you can flip the screen to show number 5, condition number 5, please. Okay. I need this expanded by you a little bit. I need some explanation as to if any development is proposed to take place within a special flood hazard area. I'm not understanding this one.
Yeah, so a special flood hazard area is basically just a floodplain. The main case here is that one thing we would require on final plat and construction plans is for the applicant to actually mark what the minimum base elevation of the building will be in that flood area.
Okay. Okay. All right. Now I understand. Jay, I have another question for you, and I appreciate your patience. With the, Carson, you may want to put the map up again.
To clarify, would you like
I'm sorry.
the aerial, the plat, or the plat with wetlands?
The plat. Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. While he's doing that, Jay, I'll ask you.
Okay.
So there's two ingress egresses that are going out to 441. But that one was fine. Okay, either one. That's fine. Yeah. The one, let's say east, farther east. I know it's more southeast, but yeah.
Right.
Okay, so that one. So that one is the one that it's right in, right out only.
Right. So if you were to pass up the first one, if you're heading south, you would still have another place to turn.
Yeah.
Or if you were leaving and you lived more on that side, the southern side, you could go out and exit that way.
Okay. Location of it, however, if a person was leaving through that egress, but does want to head north, what would be the most logical way for them to be able to do that, considering they can't turn left?
Yeah, they can't turn left. They wouldn't, unless it was, really off hours and not much traffic, they probably wouldn't be able to get over into that lane. So they'd continue down to the next available U-turn location on 441.
Okay, so they're going through the light at 441 and going down to the next one, okay.
Yeah. I mean, and people in the neighborhood, of course, would get used to, using the other exit to exit, so they'd have more time to get over and to, get into the northbound, to get to the U-turn.
And did I understand correctly that you will be for the ingress egress that is farther
to the north,
if you will, you, in regards to that, you'll be working with DOT regarding expanding something? Or lengthening?
Yes.
Something, can you please explain that again?
Sure. If you were heading north on 441, we would have to build a revised turn lane so that you could turn left into the subdivision.
Okay.
So within the framework of the existing median, we would revise.
You'll be making a
creating
designated turn lane.
A northbound dedicated left turn lane for this development, correct.
But nothing on the turning right going south?
Correct.
Nothing on that, just
It would
turning left?
only be for that one exit, the northernmost exit, correct.
Okay.
And that's fairly common. That's, more of DOT's practice nowadays to limit those to directionals.
Commissioner?
I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Sure.
I just want to, anybody else like to come up and comment on the motion on the floor? Please come up and state your name for the record.
I want to go back to those.
Please come up and state your name for the record.
It's Bill Berger from Brook Point. Right now, when you come out from the Schmidt farmhouse, I have two questions. You said that there's one house that's still going to be there, and there's this old, there was a restaurant and a bicycle repair. Is that your land? You own that too?
Yeah.
But there's still a frontage gap between that and Brook Point. Okay, going back to this turning lane. Right now, there is a deceleration lane when you're on, there's two lanes on 441, and one of them you can turn, there's a deceleration lane to come around and go on 43rd. There is, I discovered the other day, I've never paid attention to it, but about where it looks like the second exit would be, and you're going to go across, there is a small deceleration lane right there. But let me tell you, as somebody that comes out on 441 anywhere from 7:15 to 9 o'clock, I don't know how they can get clear in that second one. I go back to what I said, from Brook Point to the deceleration lane going on 43rd is 4/10 of a mile. Anyway, it'll take a little work. And a lot of work anyway. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Anyone else? You've already spoken on this before?
Brian Bisher.
You only
yes.
get one time.
Oh, you just asked if there was anybody else.
Yeah, if you've spoken on this already on our motion, right?
As did Mr. Berger.
Haven't you?
And he was an affected party.
Any
Okay.
other affected parties?
So affected parties have legal rights to be involved in legal proceedings and seek compensation for losses. Perhaps clarify that, because I think some people here, as you've gone through the affected party status, may not be clear about all of their rights.
I do not intend on doing that at all.
Anyone else like to, on the motion on the floor? Okay. I just like to say some things about what was said, please. I will guarantee you that we don't bow down to developers coming into our town and telling us what to do or change our LDRs. Every time, every city, I don't care where they are in the United States, constantly needs to be looking at their rules and regulations, because just by U.S. rules, state rules, county rules, you constantly have to be changing certain rules in your comp plan and your LDRs to match up with what is it. If not, you're violating the law yourself. So you have to constantly be looking at that, and I think that our staff has done a good job of doing this, and so I don't like to be accused of bowing down to developers, because we don't do that. Do we look at different things that need to happen? Yes. And it's a benefit for everybody. The other thing is that we have the city of Alachua, just down 441, if you go on down on that road right there on the left, almost all the way down to Fifth Third, that's conservation. You know, where Turkey Creek Forest is passed down, that's all on conservation. That backs up to 43rd Street, and that was bought a long time ago. And that's quite a few hundred acres. You got hundreds of acres. I know this is wetlands and everything, but you got right across 441, you got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of conservation land right there. We ourselves, from where Progress Park and to Alachua, all the way down just about to where we're talking about, the San Velasco State Park is there. Over 7,000 acres of conservation land. Mr. Up at the barn, Mr. Davis Rimbert put in our city, he put like 800 acres, 700 acres in conservation. We ourselves, over the years, have put over 2,000 acres in conservation. So I don't want to hear that we don't think about that or hear about it. We do. And if it's the right time, we do it. And if it's the wrong time, we have to work with people to get things done. People need houses and everything. And what I hear too about the traffic, and I've said this a million times before, if we put a gate around or a fence around Alachua, there would be a traffic problem. But 90% of the people that come through and fill up 441 are from out of the county. They come in from Levy County. They come in from, Columbia County, and they just, I see it every morning, thousands of cars coming in. Half of them get on I-75, half comes through. Then they go out, they don't stay in Alachua County itself. They go outside the county again. So we can't control that. We can't say you can't come through our community. It's US 441 and I-75. You can't tell them you can't use those roads. And then the other thing is too, is that just the conservation and stuff we've done over the years. Some people don't know about that, but I want you to know about it, because we do think about that. We don't just think about development. We just don't think about putting another subdivision in. We were lacking on houses for the amount of jobs we have, and people saw that, and they are asking us, we see things that need to happen. And houses are a thing that need to happen. People need homes. And some of the things that are being done here is done very well. And just because we go by the law. We don't go by, we want to do this, and we just throw our hand up. No, we don't do that. We follow the law. The developers are meant to follow the law. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And they're doing, and some of them go outside, and these are people, I think, going outside the box a little bit to follow the law and make it better for what. That property has been looked at multiple times over the last 40 years, and it's just being developed now, and here it is, 2025. And so I don't have any problem with that because it's in a such situation that wants to have houses in it, makes it easier for people to get to work and things like that. Yes, there's going to be some traffic problems right there now, but we have to also work with FDOT and tell them they've come in and done a lot of things without us even knowing about it up by 441 and the high school, with turn lanes, longer deceleration lanes and everything like that. But when these things come on board, they have to come in and look at it. Do you need a deceleration, and how long should it be, and everything else like that. So we can't say they're going to do it as of this second in time, but we can ask them to come and look at that and make a safe decision about what we need here. I just want to say that, what's been said tonight isn't always the truth, and I don't say they're lying, but it isn't always the complete truth about what's going on in here. And I just want to say I think that the city of Alachua does an excellent job on what they do, and not everybody likes it. But I tell you what, I think we do an excellent job. With that, Commissioner Ringerson?
No.
Commissioner Brown?
No.
Commissioner Williams?
I like this development. I respect all of the testimony that's been here today. I respect the recommendation by staff, but I'm not satisfied with the egress situation. No.
Aye.
And I will vote aye too, because I think it's been done, but we'd have to understand that this thing is not, all the decisions have not been made in all of this stuff. We still have a lot to do with FDOT, a lot to do with that. And to answer all the questions detailed about what's been come forward here and the recommendations that they're making also. So as I see it right now, there's 3 no's and 2 yeses. So with that, we're going on to the next. Would you like to say something?
Thank you, Commissioner.
With that, we'd like to go on to agenda items. Item A was Resolution 2503.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just going to wait a moment.
Hey, everyone, we need to get on with the meeting.
Okay, this is the reading of Resolution 25-03, a resolution of the City of Alachua, Florida, authorizing the use of general fund special expense contingency in the amount of $159,981, transferring $159,981 to the solid waste disposal budget, providing an effective date. This is the reading of Resolution 25-03 of the City of Alachua by title only.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. City Manager, Madam City Attorney, Rob Benetti, Finance Administrative Services Director. As you well know, beginning September 26th of last year and about 13 days later, we experienced 2 storms come through here. The first one was Helene. That was caused the most impact, had the most impact on the city of Alachua. Since that time, we collected approximately 6,500 cubic yards of debris, and we disposed of it under our disaster response and debris management plan contract with WastePro. This amount being requested is to pay the invoice from WastePro for the collection and disposal of this debris. We've initiated a public assistance claim with FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, under two categories. Category A, which is debris removal. We should collect at least 90% of that. And Category B, which is emergency protective measures, that'll cover most of the staffing that we did prior to the storm and to remedy, do like repair utility work and stuff like that. So those are ongoing. We're just about 10 days into our 60-day period to complete the request. We got most of the information compiled and definitely. But again, this 6,500 cubic yards cost approximately $159,981, which is not in the budget at this time. And therefore, we're transferring it from the $400,000 we have in reserves, and it'll leave about $240,019 in reserves if you take this action. It requires a resolution and a budget amendment to effectuate.
Commissioners, questions or comments? What's your pleasure? Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
I'm going Mayor, sorry. I couldn't push the button fast enough. I move to motion resolution 25-03.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Would anyone
Mr.
from the
Mayor,
audience?
if I may, it's also to approve the issuance of a purchase order, which is item B on here.
The motion can just be amended to add that item B.
I'll motion for that.
And I'll still second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Would anyone from the audience like to comment on the motion on the floor?
As a member of a community that was hit by a lot of
State your
large,
name for the
I'm sorry,
record,
Rudy Rothstein, apologize about that. I thank you for doing this. This is a wonderful thing to get our streets clean, to decrease dangerous issues. It was a wonderful thing. I spoke to a couple commissioners personally, and you guys all moved on it very fast and very promptly. Thank you for that, and thank you for finding the FEMA and grant money to help support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to add that it's with a great sense of pride that following Helene, I mean, we had three storms. We had Debbie, Helene, and Milton. Fortunately, the bookends weren't as bad as the one in the middle, and it was very significant. In my 58 years, that was the worst storm that I have encountered. And so it's with a great sense of pride that from our Public Services Department, our Finance Administrative Services Department, code enforcement, wide-ranging across the board, was a team effort for all of this. And we don't like to throw stones in any other communities, but I will certainly say that the city of Alachua was the first to act and the first to be cleaned up during these storms. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anything else? Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Commissioner Ringerson?
Aye.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Vice?
Aye.
Mayor? And the mayor votes aye. Thank you very much. With that, we got round two of comments from citizens on subject of choice not on the agenda. If you did not have a chance at the beginning and want to now, please do. I'd like to have city manager.
Mr. Mayor, it seems like a long time ago, but I would like to thank Reverend Moon for his invocation. It was well received. Quickly, I just would like to congratulate Carol Richardson and Travis White on their appointment to the the Parks and Recreation Board. And just note for the record that one little cute little outburst that we heard a little bit earlier that brought a smile and a little bit of levity to tonight's evening. I'd like to mention that he was super well behaved the rest of the night, and that's a big deal. So just thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I'm requesting first that the commission waive its rules and procedures because I'm going to ask for some direction here. So if someone could so move.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
As you all are all aware, talk about many moons ago, the Alachua County had its Charter Review Commission, and it had a charter amendment that very narrowly passed by, less than 1%. And what that charter amendment was doing was prohibiting, on any property which the city would annex in from the county, the city would have to maintain the land use and zoning that the county had. The city sued, I believe Newbury joined in that lawsuit. We lost that at the trial level. The lawsuit was because the title was not adequately telling the public what the actual ramifications of that amendment were doing. It was originally a 3-count complaint. We decided to go forward with just 1 count on the title because it would be the fastest, the least expensive. We lost on that. We took it up on appeal. It was fully briefed. We got a notification from the First District Court of Appeal, get ready, we're going to do oral arguments. The next day we got a, never mind, we're going to decide this on the merits. And we waited and waited about another 6 months, so 2 years after we filed our notice of appeal and had it fully briefed, we got a notice that the court was saying, we don't have jurisdiction. We were all very confused to say 2 years later, you figure this out? It was a form over substance. The court could have just said, but we're going to look at it an appeal from a final order because there wasn't much record. The whole record was the 2 briefs and what was attached. Anyway, we came back down, presented argument, lost again. It had gone to another judge. We were compelled to do that because in the 2 years from when we filed that first notice of appeal and we were going up, 5 new cases have come out, 2 from the Florida Supreme Court, which have some relevance to the issues in this appeal. If we did not go back down and present it at the trial level, it could be said that we waived it going back up to the appeal, because you have to, on appeals, what you do at the trial can be determinative. So we are at the point now where we're making a decision of moving forward with the appeal. The briefs that were done will have to be changed somewhat because of the new case law, but because of how draconian the impacts of this amendment are David Theriak, who is the land use attorney we use on a lot of our really complicated stuff, and the city manager and I had a phone call on Friday. We went over all of this, and it is our recommendation that the city go forward with the appeal at the first DCA. So it is my request that this board I will make a motion if the board wishes to move forward with it, which is to direct David Theriak to file the notice of appeal in this case and move forward with it.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to have staff direct David Theriak to help me out.
File the notice of appeal.
File the notice of appeal.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Would anyone from the audience like to comment on the motion on the floor? Commissioner Ringerson?
Aye.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Commissioner Ringerson.
Make it quick here. Chief, keep keeping us safe. I'm going to just say two things, I think, about tonight. Thank you for everybody that came. Thank you for everybody that was professional and not attacking to us, the city, our planners, everything. I do appreciate the professionalism for many of you that are still here in the audience. I will mention one thing about roundabouts. I know that was brought up. I've been living in this town 25 years. I got moved to Gainesville on Tower Road. I used to travel Tower Road so long ago. And they put that roundabout in front of Oak Hall going into the Market West area. And I was never a roundabout fan, but there are no accidents. And everybody slows down once you know what to do. And everybody figures it out. That's my 2 cents on roundabouts, but I think they actually work. And that's it, Mayor.
Commissioner Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My appreciation to Pastor Moon for the prayer tonight. The Benny Keith groundbreaking was awesome, as well as the Sid Martin celebration. And the Elder Options meet and greet was very informative. Thanks to Mayor Gibb and Commissioner Ringerson for supporting the event. Thank you to all the citizens who were here tonight to offer their comments. And I have something else to share. Are we still within our rules being waived?
We would have to waive it for each thing that when you're asking for some direction.
All right, so I'll bring up my concern. I cannot leave this meeting tonight knowing that 3 of our planners have submitted their resignations. That speaks volumes to me. They have committed their time, their lives, their service to this community and to this city. And I am very, very upset. And I really would like to find out more about why. I've talked to the city manager, and I do intend to speak with the planners. We can't just sit here and pretend it didn't happen. It happened. So what can we do as a commission to address it?
Mr. Williams.
Comments from...
Are you asking for
Yes.
comments from us?
Yes.
I mean, it's sad. I think that I don't know. I mean, this is where I think we get guided. And I know when somebody leaves, they do an exit interview with an HR or the city manager. I would love for this, if this process could happen, where they could be interviewed by somebody outside the city so that they can be open and honest if there is something that is there that they would like to discuss so that we are fully informed. I don't know if that's something that can happen, but I do feel that I would entertain that. I think it's important for people to be able to say something and be able to feel okay with saying it and it be brought to our attention so that we're aware. That's the only thing I can think of other than sad that they are leaving.
Now, Commissioner Williams.
I'm not prepared to speak on this tonight because we just found out, of course, last week. I hear your concerns, Commissioner Brown. But again, I would be it would be too preliminary for me to make comments. Yes, absolutely. I don't ever want to see anyone leaving the city. You know, yes, if it's to better themselves and further their careers, of course, but it's still something like that. I'm still sad to see them go. To have 3 go from the same department, of course, is highly unusual, to say the least. But any other comments that I have to make beyond that would be preliminary, because I haven't had enough time to speak to parties involved. I'm just being honest. You know, probably at the next commission meeting, I could, you know, make comments towards it.
I'm going to simply agree with everything that was said by my colleague, Commissioner Brown, and what Commissioner Ringerson said as well. I think it's catastrophic. This isn't, you got 75% of our professional staff in the planning department leaving. It's catastrophic. We need to know more about why it happened. It isn't just getting another job. You have 3 people leaving at the same time. It speaks volumes. Somebody said it speaks volumes. It does. We're losing 95% of our tenure and expertise. I love Carson, but I mean, Carson can't manage this by himself. I agree with the independent review to make sure that our staff have the ability to explain what put them in a position that they felt like this is the way they wanted to go. I want to know more, and I'm extremely concerned about where we go from here. We have our friend from the media here, so I'm glad that you brought it up, Ms. Shirley, because it needs to be addressed. And those are my comments.
I'm sure it will be. It is a tough time right now, but I'm sure it will be addressed in a positive way, if you could say that. But I want to thank Mabane Mustangs for being here tonight. They were awesome, as they always are. And just the things that have been going on. The young basketball 399 was at Legacy playing basketball. And when the kids aren't much taller than that and they try and make a basket, it makes it kind of tough. They do lower the net, though, but it's still tough on lowering the net, too. Rudy, you wouldn't have a problem with it. I know that.
My team plays at 1 Saturday, Mayor, if you want to come watch.
Pardon?
My team plays at 1 at Legacy Saturday, if you want to come check me out.
So anyway, I just want to say there's been a lot of good things happening in our Legacy Center and around at the parks and everything like that. And it's always a pleasure when I go by and see people out there playing basketball, tennis, and all that, and the pickleball at Halliburton. I know Miss Shirley said she was going to start pickleball pretty soon.
Mr. Mayor, getting back to the Vice Mayor's suggestion of an independent, I would certainly support that.
That was Commissioner Ringerson's idea.
Oh, I thought I heard the Vice Mayor
He
say.
agreed.
All right, I would support that. So what do we need to do? Attorney?
There would have to first be a motion. Well, we waived the rules on this? I forgot. We have not. So the first thing we're going to need is to waive the rules so that the commission can take some action.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Next, there would need to be a request for an independent investigation and review of the circumstances surrounding the resignation of the 3 planners. That would be a second one. A third one would be to say who was going to be doing this. It would need to be independent. So if you want to do the second one first, and then we can discuss the next steps, because this is kind of going down some steps here. So the second step would be that the commission wishes to. Now I forgot what I did on the first one.
Madam Attorney, you said that for an independent investigation and interview.
Okay, so that was voted yes. So the next one is who would be doing this investigation? I suggest it would be somebody that has nothing to do with the city of Alachua right now, including our own outside employment attorneys, because they are also familiar with people. There is an employment law firm in town called Donnelly and Gross. I could also inquire as to some other attorneys that would be down in the Tampa Bay area. My suggestion would be it would need to be done expeditiously so that things could get back. They would be responding to this commission. So everything is going to be in the sunshine when the commission is running this. Also, when you are appointing attorneys, you do not have to go out for RFPs, RFQs. There is a statute on that. So that's another reason why I would suggest whoever is doing this investigation be a law firm. If this commission would like to direct me to make some inquiry so that I could bring some things back as soon as possible, I would be happy to do that. I'm not going to do it, but to bring information back to the city commission.
So you need a motion? Is that what you're looking for?
Yes.
Would be a motion for that?
Yes, please.
So I make a motion for this commission. I make a motion for this commission to direct city attorney to
bring back suggestions
for outside agencies,
outside attorneys,
to address
to do an independent
to
investigation.
do an independent investigation. There's my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Commissioner Rangerson?
Aye.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you. I will make that a top priority to be able to get that and bring that back and get recommendations, parameters, and things like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We need a motion.
Citizen comment, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Sorry for interrupting. Rudy Rothside. Thank you, commissioners, for taking this very seriously. Small town, people have approached me about some of these issues, and thank you all for taking it very seriously and finding independent, trying to allow the truth to come forward, whatever that may be. I just question what is going to happen in the time being. I don't know what their status is on when they give them their 2 weeks or however that works. But is there any? I would just hope that we don't do a temp agency planner or anything along those lines. Just be my suggestion. Hopefully, I don't know. It definitely might put some delays on some of our plans that we have rolling, but just have consideration for that, and please make the best hires possible. I know you will. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
That is a good question, Rudy. Thank you for bringing that up. City attorney, how does that work if we have other?
I have not looked into. I think this is all happen rather quickly to say exactly where things are in what stages on different, what is in the pipeline, so to speak. What do we need to do? I do know that, and I'm going way back, well, actually 2 different times we have done, in order to keep a status quo, we have done moratoriums that you could do for a specific set of time. That is done via an ordinance. You cannot have a planning emergency. You could do an emergency ordinance on certain things. When City Hall burned down, we had an emergency ordinance, okay? A moratorium would be, it would be ordinance that would be brought back. We would have to advertise it. It would probably have to have the 2 advertisements because it would be dealing with planning matters, and those require the 2 advertisements, a certain amount of time between them. That is something else I could do in between right now if that is something the commission would like to do. And try to do it for, I don't know the amount of time. I guess I'm just trying to think of what I would have to have in the title of the ordinance to be able to do that, if I would have to say the amount of time, because it's going to take us a little time to get it put in place. There could be a direction that nothing go forward. We need to get a moratorium in place and maybe do it for 60 days. And look and see if there's anything else that is sitting out there that has, I can get with the planners and see if there's anything else in there that we absolutely have to get done in the meantime, and report back to the commission on all of those things at the next meeting, so that, we have everything here and it's all going to be, at the direction of the commission. I'm certainly not taking any actions without the commission. It all has to come back here.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for City Manager, if it's okay. City Manager, I would love to have you give input into this topic right now.
Well, I can't speak for the employees.
No, I meant what we're doing now.
Yeah.
In the meantime.
Well, we've already, we've taken an inventory of everything that's in the planning process. We're in the middle of triaging exactly how that happens. Certainly, it was sudden, and we do have positions posted, and that is not in any way to exacerbate the situation. But I've reached out to other professional services seeking help. I've reached out to North Florida Regional Planning Council, have not received word back from them. Not sure what state they are in, from what I'm understanding. But outside of any new applicants that would come by, and I've been told that there's interest. Again, I'm not trying to replace anybody. I have to make sure that the city's business continues one way or another, and I certainly, this is not something that that makes me happy. But I'm committed to finding a solution and moving forward and being better because of it.
My initial thought is I'm not in favor of jumping to an ordinance to do a moratorium just yet. I think that's too quick. I'm willing to, we have 2 weeks until our next commission meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to give the city manager an opportunity to continue exploring what he's already expressed and come back to this commission with a report on where that stands. If I understand correctly, our planning director and one of our planners will be here until Thursday. We still have Carson for that week, and then our meeting. So I think pulling the trigger on a moratorium is at this meeting is too soon.
Mr. Mayor, if I can, I think that what the city manager just said is very important, that they have taken an inventory of what's there. I think it would be helpful for probably everybody, including myself, to get a copy of that inventory so we know what is going on. And then when we meet again, we'd be able to talk from having some information in front of us.
And I can provide that as soon as possible.
Well, then I understand my marching orders are to immediately move forward, find someone, a law firm, something to do a independent investigation, and I will bring it back to this commission at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
No,
Sure.
because you haven't asked myself or the vice mayor for our comments, our end comments. I only have one comment that I'd like to make, and I hate to do it on top of all of this, but I'm not asking for a motion, I'm not waiving the rules, but everyone heard my comments about the Schmidt Farms. I'm not against the development. I just wasn't satisfied at all with the ingress egress situation. And I don't know if it's possible. I'm probably speaking out of turn, but I would really love to, if it's possible, to see, and I say staff, and it's limited at the moment, but for staff to try and work with that, to try and work with JB Pro to see if there's any other solutions to the issues with the ingress egress. Like I said, don't know if it's possible, maybe speaking out of turn, but I just wanted to put that out there because I'm not against the development. I just was not satisfied with that answer about the ingress egress. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No comments.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, everyone, for being here.